How's everything, boy? Thanks very much for joining me.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's a pleasure.
I wanted to I wanted to ask you before I forget. You mentioned that when we were speaking before that you quite like watching the Republican episodes of this pod. First of all, thanks for watching anyway. But yeah, you told me you quite like hearing the Republican lads.
Yes, it's good to hear what your enemies. It's good to hear what your enemies have to say about what they went through and what their thinking was when they were in time of conflict. And it's good. I tune into all that. I like to hear everybody's opinions of how they felt at the time of conflict, and it's interesting. Some of them are very interesting indeed.
Would you say the same for security forces? When I interview like or RUC and Special Branch and all them,
Yeah, I would tune in and listen to all theirs because everyone, be it Republican, Loyalist, or security forces, they all have a different story to tell, and they were all playing their roles, albeit different roles from Loyalists, Republicans, and security forces. So it's all interesting, and it makes it interesting listening to me, and I would listen to most of what they had to say about the past conflict.
Interesting, interesting. Again, now before I forget, it was in the news as someone who has been convicted of directing terrorism of terrorism charges. Did you see that story about the those rap group Kneecap?
I've seen bits and pieces of it, yes, but I haven't really tuned in to it much. Something about the Israeli, the Palestinians. They said something about they would wish that the MPs to die or something or be killed or something along
Right.
those lines.
So there was two. There was okay. So one guy, the fella, his name's Liam in the group.
Yeah,
He
he was charged.
Yeah, so he had a Hezbollah flag on stage.
Yeah,
I can't I hate Hezbollah, but I
yeah,
don't think waving their flag on
yeah,
stage should
yeah,
warrant that. He and there was also the good Tory is a dead Tory or something like that.
yeah.
Do you think okay, we'll put aside the like the Tory one. Do you think that waving a Hezbollah flag on stage at a if you're a musician, do you think that should warrant terrorism investigation?
It's totally wrong. At the stage that they are with their career, which is very good, may I add, they shouldn't be getting involved in politics whatsoever, one side or another. Was it wrong for them to wave that flag? Absolutely. I can only do bad for their career instead of good. And from what I see of them, they seem to be really, really, really good. But that's they're getting nowhere by doing that, only losing support.
Interesting. Okay, I meant like from the from the authorities' point of view. Do you think it's a worthwhile thing to be investigating some rap group because they had do you think it's something that should warrant like jail time or some kind of fine or conviction of any kind?
Well, at the end of the day, the law is the law, and I suppose that's the way the majority of the people say it. They want the law addressed. And if law breakers break the laws, be it verbally or physically, they have to be brought to book. And I think that's what's happened there. And if they're calling for some members of parliament to be killed, I mean that's a threat, and that's something that you don't do, especially somebody like that, the kneecap who's in the public domain and who are a successful rap band or whatever they are. I mean, it's wrong. And no matter who anyone, if they break the law, they should be brought to book, irrespective of who they are, a rap band or a rock band or whatever.
The thing is though, I mean, if that law was to be applied evenly, where like every place that had the flag of a prescribed terrorist group hanging up, I mean, half of Belfast would be convicted for something like
Yeah,
that.
well, when you're using Belfast, I mean, I think that's something that as part of the Good Friday Agreement and the peace agreement, I think that's something that both communities and the government are working hard to try and sort out. And as you see, as the years go on, especially in the month of July, you can see changes right throughout the province when it comes to flags and bunties and things like that. And I think from a loyalist point of view and from the loyalist community's point of view, I think they've given a lot. I think they've given far too much when it comes to flags and parades, etc., or culture, shall we say? I mean, I think the loyalist community has went too far, and I think that maybe been pushed too far, and I think enough's enough.
Do you think so like do you think from like from now on, none to do with the kneecap thing, but in general, do you think like people in the north should should kind of move away from having flags of IRA, INLA, Loyalist.
Well, I mean,
Do you think? Because I
the,
mean, because a lot of people would see it as being the same thing as like if your relative was in the British Army or the SAS, and you'd be proud of that. Like,
if and we're yes, we're proud and we're entitled to be proud of our identity, our Britishness, and we're entitled to display our flags. And what I will say on that is that since the peace agreement came, the loyalist community has made lots and lots of changes when it comes to flags. I mean, you'll not see as many as you would have seen years ago before the peace agreement. You'll not see as many political flags and paramilitary flags. I think it's managed more, and I think people can live with it because on the other side of the fence, the nationalists will fly the tricolour. And there is not a big, as much a stink from the loyalists against them as flying the tricolour as there is where the Catholics complain more about what Protestants are flying and doing and what.
although in fairness, flying a tricolour and flying a flag that has like an IRA symbol or a loyalist paramilitary, they're totally different things.
See, to be honest, the tricolour belongs down in Southern Ireland. That's where it belongs. That's not our British flag. Our flag is a Union flag, the Ulster flag, not the tricolour. So I don't believe that any of them flags, that the Palestinian flags, the tricolours, waving them in our faces is just creating an atmosphere that will probably end up in trouble with one side or the other. So it's not their flag. So keep it where it belongs, fly it where it belongs, and nobody will complain. But don't fly it in our faces where it's not.
You didn't say it, but like you're not suggesting that it would be like that there would be like legal penalties for doing it, just that they shouldn't in the way in the way that Liam fella is facing legal penalties for flying a Hezbollah flag.
Well, all I can say on that is, I mean, the law is the law, and obviously the authorities had arrested him and charged him and bailed him. So obviously there's evidence to suggest that he's broken the law. So no matter what it is, flying a flag or saying inflammatory words or making inflammatory statements, I mean, if you break the law, you got to be brought to book. And I think that's what's happened in this case, irrespective of the flag or some words about an MP. He's broke the law somewhere along the line, and that's why he's been arrested and charged and bailed.
Okay, I mean, you do the odd time see footage from inside some kind of Republican drinking spot where they're singing songs and dancing, or loyalist, same thing, and you'll hear like you'll sometimes hear the band, they'll sing a song and they'll kind of say like, oh, something about killing the Tags, or on the other side, killing the project. Like every time one of them comes out, do you think the person speaking should be investigated?
I think that's just drink and a crowd being joyful and happy and the music's swaying, and being Catholics or Protestants, Republican or Loyalists, they're going to shout "fuck the Pope" or "fuck the Queen" or the King or whatever the case may be. It's no big deal, lad. It's not going to. It's no. It's just.
But I'm talking about when it does like when it does say like kill the something or kill, because I'm just saying I'm just applying the same thing because your man, I'm not sure if it was Liam said the thing
Yeah.
about the dead Tories, but like if it's if it should be illegal in England to say kill the whoever, then it should be in Belfast when you say kill the whoever.
Well, you're not allowed. You're not supposed to say it, but people say it, and sometimes probably because your man name's in the public domain and he's well known, and they're going from strength to strength. Obviously, somebody's made the complaint or made it aware that look, we're upset and offended by his action or his deeds, and you need to take action against this. And sometimes the police have to be seen to take action against someone in the public domain. However, I get what you're saying about loyalist clubs or Republican clubs where flags are being waved and shouting "fuck the Pope" or whatever the case may be. That's understandable, and that's no big deal. That's a way of life, and I don't think that's going to change. To be honest with you, it's sung at football matches and further afield. You know, it's just something that you're not going to change. It's just drink and people having a laugh. I don't think there's any malice in it, to be honest.
I don't know if I'd say there's no malice in it, but yeah, I get what you mean. Would you you talked about the tricolour and the Union Jack. Would you be one of these loyalists who considers himself Irish and British in the way that like a
No,
Scottish
no,
person
no,
might
no, no,
consider
no.
themselves
I'm British.
and
I'm an
British.
Ulster man, British, an Ulster Scots. That's what I am.
I'm
I
not I'm
consider
not
myself Irish.
I'm not
I
going.
mean, even I'm living in Scotland, and people would refer to me as Irish. And it took for a long time for me to kind of come to terms with that because I didn't like it. And at the start, I'm not Irish, I'm British. But they're just going with the tone of my voice and my accent. So they labelled me Irish and still do. Probably more so Catholics and people in England. They just deemed me to be Irish, but I'm not Irish, I'm British. I'm an Ulster man, Ulster Scot.
I'm not bringing up Billy Hutchinson because you two had beef, but he, like, for example, I remember I was quite surprised when I interviewed him. He said he considers himself Irish and British in the way like a Welsh person. Not you at all, no.
No, that's entirely up to him. He's entitled to his own beliefs. I'm an Ulster man. And I prefer to stay like that the day I die.
Mm. Do you think if a United Ireland happen? Okay, first of all, do you think United Ireland could well happen in your lifetime? And if yes, how would you feel about it?
Probably not in my lifetime, but do I think could I see it happening in the future? I don't know. I would hate to say yes, but the way things are going and the way, I mean, slowly but surely, everything that the late great Billy Wright had said has came true. I mean, you talk about flags, you talk about parades, you talk about Irish language, you talk about all different things. Slowly but surely, they're all being pressed upon the loyalist communities, and it's sadly sometimes it's happening, and it's no big deal, and and they'll move from one thing to another. Well, they're asking, is this the price of peace? I don't know. Is it offending people? Yes, I'm sure it does. Will it stop? I don't think so. Is it on a road to a united Ireland? Hoping that's what Republicans would hope, that that's where they're bringing their people, a united Ireland. I hope it never happens. But you're asking, well, could I foresee it happening in my time? No, not in my time. No, I'm 61 years of age now, and I don't think I'm gonna have that much time left. But I would like to see it in my time.
I see. I see. Do you think if it did happen, in theory, if it happened in like a year or two or three, do you think that the Protestant community would face violence, given that they're now part of technically a different country and they're like a very
Oh, I think
minority?
violence is a place for the past, and I don't ever think that violence would be a weapon to use for anything that you disagree with. Most definitely, I could be wrong, but I couldn't see our loyalist resistance against it. Uh, United Ireland was trying to be opposed on the loyalist people. I couldn't see a resistance. I hope I'm wrong, but I couldn't see it. Well, a military resistance anyway. That's what I'm talking about. Maybe peaceful protest. That's about it. That's what I would say, and that's what it's been in years. And even that frizzles out. You had the flag protests. You had the flag at the Union at the City Hall being allowed to fly on designated days, and I mean the protest for a couple of weeks, and then it just fades away. So I think the violence from the past is gone and going for good and going forever, which is good because
I
it was
mean,
a bloody past, and I was part of that, and it was horrendous. It was horrible, and
I
I'm glad that there's
mean,
peace there now.
not violence from the Protestant community. I mean the more bitter Republicans seeing their chance to have a go at the Protestants, given that the Protestants are now a minority in Ireland, in the Republic of Ireland.
No, there is distant Republican groupings there, and they've been there for some 20 odd years. They've tried to fill the boots of the Provisional IRA, something that they would never do or could never. They've killed about a dozen, maybe 2 dozen people in 20 years, right? A handful of them have been members of security forces. They don't have the experience, they don't have the dedication, they don't have the capabilities that the Provisional IRA had. So there's no way that I believe that the dissident Republicans, whatever's left of them, are going to stand up and fight and win a united Ireland. No way whatsoever. I mean, these boys, in my opinion, are just made up of common criminals who want to be Republicans, who want to fight for Ireland. These people, in my opinion, had the opportunity to fight to free Ireland when the war was going on, when the Provisional IRA weren't on ceasefire. These people weren't there then. So I say, like, why are they there now? They're there now because they're just typical. They're just gangsters wearing balaclavas and masquerading as Republicans. Go and see a man Evans would do what Bobby Sands done, starve themselves to death for United Ireland, our political cause. Go and see a man distance would do that. Don't think he'll get too many queuing up to go, put their hand up to go first, second, third, fourth, right up to 10. Can't see it. Somehow I can't believe that would happen.
We're talking about Belfast, but Belfast, obviously your hometown. For anyone who mightn't know like your situation and why you left and stuff, we'll get into that later. But like in theory now, right? If you wanted to give me a walking tour of like the Shankill and just we stroll up and down, what would happen for those who are not familiar with your situation?
If I was to walk up the Shankill,
If you were to give me like a walking tour or something.
well, my life is supposedly I'm under death sentence if I go back to Belfast to the Shankill. So I think if somebody had the balls and I think they would try and wind people up to try and kill me, I think that would be an option. So would I walk up the Shankill? No, that would be out of bounds for me. Because they have said that they would kill me if I came home. I do go to Belfast and I do go quite a lot, but I don't walk up on a baseball cap on back in the front with Alsatian dog with me. So it's easy, me. But no, that's a no-go for me. I'm happy in my own skin now, my own life now.
Do you think it would be a case of someone seeing you putting in a text or a call and then someone coming with a gun, or do you think someone would just run up to you physically and attack you that way? Or
I don't know. I've a lot of support over there. I'm in contact with people back home every single day in life, and I have been. I have lots and lots of friends and comrades over there. Good men, good friends, and loyal comrades. The best of the best. And I'm in touch with them every day. So if the push came to shove, no, I wouldn't even want to go down that road, to be honest with you. But if I was to go down that road, I could turn things around. But I wouldn't want to do that. I'm happy in my own skin.
does it I don't know, does it cause you like pain or sadness on any level that this area that has been your home since you were a kid and the way you see it, you fought to defend it, and it's now a place that you can no longer step foot in. That
Yeah,
must.
but I mean, yeah, I get where you're coming from. But that's life. Life moves, times move, and you got to move with the times. And that time when I was there, there was a reason I was there, right? And then peace came, feuds happened. I went to jail. I ended up in England, ended up in Scotland. The peace became concrete over there. So there's no place for me over there. I resumed from Belfast, coming out of conflict and out of prison to resume a normal life. Something that I was robbed of for years. My own fault though, because I dedicated myself to the organisation and the fight against violent Republicans. But I've got a normal life now, and I wouldn't want to change that for anything.
Would it be? I mean, obviously, you see the violence that C Company was involved in, and just kind of everything the C Company was involved in as being necessary and part of a war, and wars are violent and bloody and so on. But do you look back and miss it on any level, even if it's just kind of the thrill of being a big man in the area and having people who look up to you and being able to fight for something that you believe in. I'd imagine that's a very strong kind of pull, and it's probably something that you would miss on some level, even though there was, death threats and
Well,
all that kind of thing.
no. To be honest, that life, mate, all the way you're putting it was glorious. It was far from glorious. It was a dangerous, dangerous life. And I challenge anyone to wear my shoes and live that life that I lived. Because I was constantly under threat of death from the Republicans, the INLA, and the Provisional IRA. I was constantly under pressure from the authorities, the special branch, the RUC, and the British Army. I was constantly harassed by the RUC. I was constantly arrested on the Prevention of Terrorism Act and taken to the interrogation centre. My home was constantly raided, and I mean raided. I don't mean just locked onto the bed. I mean holes in the wall drilled by the British Army and cameras put down and looking for explosives or munitions or guns. I mean, that was a crazy, crazy life for one individual. And it came at a heavy, heavy price for me, where I had been shot in the head, I'd been grazed and shot in the side, I had my car bombed, my home bombed, I'd been poisoned while I was in prison, I'd been numerous gun attacks directed against me. The British intelligence tried to shoot me outside my own door. So that was a dangerous, dangerous, dangerous life. However, that never deterred me from trying to defend our communities against the threat of the Republican violence. And I believe I've done a good job at it.
Let's actually go into your timeline, your story. You were born in what, 63?
1963, yep.
Okay. So when this conflict kicked off, officially
Conflict.
69, yeah. You were 6. Can you just describe, I mean, it's probably a type of thing that no amount of description can really impress upon someone who wasn't there what it's actually like to be living in like this semi-war zone, especially growing up as a child when you kind of, I mean, you kind of wouldn't really know that much different. Well, yeah, tell us what Belfast was like for you.
Well, my first memories of the Troubles breaking out was, and then I lived in Beach Park Street in North Belfast in the Old Park at the time, and half of that street would have been Catholics and the other half would have been Protestants. So I was about, what, 7, 8, 9 then. So some of my friends would have been Catholic. It wouldn't have mattered. That didn't mean anything to us then, religion, especially at that age. But even at that, the families and the adults could all live together. And then the civil rights kicked off, trouble broke out, street violence broke out. And I can remember waking up one morning and half the street, the houses in it, were burned. And I later realised that what's going on here? And most of these wee guys and houses were, some of them were my friends. But later on, at such a young age, what was that? Oh, they were takes, they were burnt out. So the houses that was left in the street with the people still in them were Protestants. And the ones burnt out were Catholics who were put out by the Protestants. The same thing happened on the other side, which was predominantly Catholic. They would have run the Protestants out and burned their homes. And then just after that, I just remember just being born into the Troubles, because it became, from that day onwards or next day onwards, when all them houses were burnt out, it just became street battles from Protestants and Catholics, gun battles with the British Army and Republicans and indeed Loyalists. And then vigilantes were set up to monitor and protect our streets, where you had men guarding your street every night. You had gun battles every night. You had petrol bombs. It was just a real dangerous place. But for a young boy at that age, it was interesting to watch all this. But also at the same time, it was scary. I mean, when you're all crouched in, there was 9 of us in the family, and when you're all crouched into the room, at the back of the house at night time, when it's pitch black, all the lights turned off, your mother and your father, you have us all in the back room, and all you can hear is the raging sound of a gun battle going on outside. Yards from your house, 10 yards, 20 yards, 30 yards, soldiers would have landed outside your house, firing up the road at the Republicans. And to hear the thunder of the SLR rounds, which were very, very loud and powerful and bang, it was frightening when you're a young boy at that age, and your mommy and dad's telling you everything's going to be right, don't worry. But you think, it was really, really frightening at that stage of it, when you were in the house at night time and the gun battles were going on.
Of course. I was going to ask you, like, if I came along to you, or if some cousin of yours, like, it wasn't from the area, came along to you when you were like 10 or 11, and they said, look, I heard about those houses getting burnt out. What would be like the short explanation Johnny would have given them?
No, the explanation was they were Taigs, Catholics. That's what we called Catholics, Taigs, Fenians. I mean, and they called us prods or orange men.
But then if he said, okay, I get that they're different and they have different religion, but why would that mean they should get burned out?
Because at that stage, when that happened, it was the talk of the community. That was the topic of conversation. There's trouble in the streets of Belfast. They're rattling all over Belfast, the prods and the takes. That's the way it would have been. It wasn't the Provisional IRA, the UVF and UDA. It was the prods and the takes. That's the way it was explained to us at that age. The prods and the takes, their takes that got burnt out. Prods would have got burnt out from other areas and come into the areas, and we would have tried to get them in houses. And then after weeks or months, it just became 2 segregated communities. One was green, the other one was orange. Protestant and Catholic. And then throughout the years, they eventually put in peace lines up that separate the two communities. But I'm talking about the greater Belfast areas like such as North and West Belfast, where it just became a war zone. It just became green and orange, and that's the way it was. Unless you were rich and lived up beyond the road, where it didn't matter if you were Protestant or Catholic. But we were working class people, and this is the way we lived, and we had no other choice in the matter.
So C Company, we'll get on to we'll get on to join the UDA soon, but C Company is Lower Shankill Road. Is that where you grew up?
Shankill, I C Company's Lower Shankill, yep, West Belfast Brigade.
For anyone who doesn't know, the Falls Road, which is the Catholic one, and the Shankill Road, they run like not parallel, but they kind of semi-parallel. They get closer to each other. So the lower part is the part that's closer
Yeah,
to the Falls Road, and
yeah,
that of course would affect like
yeah. We were at the bottom of the Shankill, yeah, Lower Shankill. That was C Company stronghold. C Company was Shankill, and you know other companies A and B, which was Upper Shankill, Glencairn, Highfield, and Spring Martin.
So Ada, I mean, kind of before your teens and onwards, like from that point onwards, you wouldn't have hung out with Catholics anymore, no?
No, at that point, when you fast forward from '69 to '73, when UDA was formed, first of all, you had the vanguard movement, who were the people who would have been vigilantes, who would have guarded, protected your streets and your communities at nights, and then somewhere along the line, the UDA was born in 1970, early '70s, and that was the men who wore paramilitary uniforms and balaclavas and carried wooden cudgels, and they came on the street and paraded. And as a young boy watching that, you thought it was great because these weren't British soldiers; these were our men from our community who were in the Ulster Defence Association, who were here to protect us from Catholic attacks, and it looked great, and it was amazing looking because you had hundreds of men marching with shields and cudgels, and it was a great feeling as a young boy. And obviously, you're going, I want to be like him when I grow up. But these were the men that were the defenders of our communities, and it was good. I thought it was great as a young kid. You can imagine.
As again, like as a teen, like through your teen years, were you aware of you're aware that there was the UVF and the UDA? You're aware that there
Well,
was.
it became well at a young age, yes, of course, because it's all happening in your community. You know, the men with the green uniforms are the UDA, and the guys with the black balaclavas and dark sunglasses were the UVF, which, in my opinion, at the time felt more the looked apart with the black polo neck jumpers and the black leather jackets and the dark glasses and the black cap comforter. They looked cool. But that's the way it was. So it just became clear then you had two organisations. One was UDA and the other one was the UVF, and there was a smaller one, the Red Hand Commandos.
Interesting. Okay, see. So your I guess through your yeah, okay. Tell us about like your life through your teens. You were like a skinhead rocker one stage. You kind of later got into like
Again, we were just and then that's when we left school. We formed a band. It's time that there's the Hunger Strikers too. We formed a band. We were skinheads, and of course the politics came into that. We were members of the National Front, but way back then when we were kids, we didn't really understand what it was all about. We just thought it was hate blacks and hate paggies, but we didn't realise that because we were young, it was part of the skinhead trad. Right? You have to be National Front or British movement to be in the skinheads. So we just went along with the flow, and we became National Front supporters and members indeed. And then we formed a band, which was a right-wing racist band, and with a big following, big cult following, and they were good times, dangerous times again. But it's still, after all that, you still became the sectarian clashes in Belfast city centre every night, because that's where we would have went. We would have went in the town every single night to have fights with the Catholics. And that was just a normal life for us. And in between that, you'd street rats with your kids. Because remember, we lived cheek by jowl by these people. Catholics would have only lived 100 yards or 200 yards. So our playground then was throwing bottles and stones at the Catholics. And we got, it may sound crazy, but that's where we got our fun from. And I'm sure that I could speak for half of Belfast. That's the way it was in them days.
You're
And
saying
then,
we there for the band. One of the members of the band was a lifelong friend of yours and someone who.
yeah, he passed away a few years ago. Skelly, Sammy McCrory.
Yeah, this is
Yep,
this is
yep.
Sam McCrory. If you've read anything about C Company, there's a lot of kills that are attributed to him. He did kill that I don't want to butcher his name, but Notarino.
I don't know. I don't know. I couldn't answer that. I don't know. But you have to read, see all that speculation and nonsense in that silly book, The Rise and Fall of C Company. None of that's right. And I was the leader of C Company. And I can guarantee there's two certain people who's linked to about a dozen murders, and both of them had nothing to do with anything. That's my understanding. So that book is nonsense. So I wouldn't quote me anything from that book.
Sam McCrory, lifelong friend.
Lifelong friend, yep.
You
Yep.
became friends like in your teens. He was in that
Yep.
band.
Yep.
Um, yeah, okay. So him and a few others would become like a core, kind of C company core of operators, killers, whatever you want to say.
Yep.
He was most certainly one of them. Okay, yeah. To talk to us about how you came about joining the UDA.
I joined the UDA. I think it was right about early and mid '80s when they talked about the Anglo-Irish Agreement and all, and Murray failed secretary and all, but there was just again Protestants attacking RUC homes, and we were getting the illusion that Dublin was going to start having more affairs, more say in the affairs of our country. We didn't like it. So the UDA, which was a legal organisation, we'd rallied up the troops, and we were involved in lots of protests and against disturbances throughout the province. And then as time goes on, the IRA gets stronger and they get more active in doing what they're doing. And loyalist paramilitaries as such don't really seem to be doing onto the IRA what the IRA was doing onto the Protestant, the loyalist, and our community. So it was at the time then that I felt that, whereas I'm quoted as saying this in the past, I worked 9 to 5 every day. And because of the threat of the IRA, I felt that if there's something that I could do to try and to slow the IRA down or try and goes to defeat them. So I tried to join the Ulster Defence Regiment part-time, and they refused me. They wouldn't let me join that because the security in it says, no, he's the wrong type of person we want in here. So when I couldn't legally do something to defend my country, the next step to that was the UDA, who were legal at the time. So I joined that. But to be honest, and the period that I was in it, there was no military activity until, and it was very, very, very rare that there was military activity. And then I went to the military wing, which was the Ulster Freedom Fighters. And then that's where it became military. And that's where, obviously, I was brought in and brought on board and offered my services to the people that were there at the time. And then I just ended up just flying through the ranks of the organisation. And I come in mid-90s, I just became the leader because most of the old leaders had went to jail through the Stevenson inquiry investigation. So that paved way for people like myself that are more dedicated and ruthless fucking leadership to take over, and that's what we did, and that's where C Company was born.
Why not join the UVF given that they were the more prolific loyalist group?
To be honest, that did cross my mind about the UVF, because when I go back to the early '80s and the mid '80s, the UVF would have been very, very active, and I admired them, and especially the Shankill UVF, where they were doing in the early '80s what C Company was doing in the '90s. The Republicans, they were going in after them. And that would have crossed my mind at the time, but because of the circles I kept, it would have been more UDA associated in the area than it would have been UVF. But that was an option that did cross my mind, because they were then a very good organisation. They were very good against the Republicans, whereas the UDA was sort of, I'm talking about West Belfast Brigade. They weren't interested in that. It was just more extorting building sites and robbing sweet shops. It was not go after the IRA or Sinn Féin. and I wasn't. I wanted to be more militant. So that's where.
In your book you said you were basically like you and others were like threatened into joining, and that you turned it down once, and then you were basically threatened with like violence or getting shot.
Well, you see in Belfast at that time, you've got all sorts of people running around saying, pretending that they're big men, or because they know someone in the UVF, the UDA, they would run around saying, "You better join the UDA, you better join the UVF." That was the common thing with what people would see, even kids in school. And at that age, you wouldn't be the right age to join the organisation. You had to be 16 anyway to join the Ulster Young Militants. But that was all nonsense. You'd have got people saying that, "Oh, you better join the UDA or else." But we joined the UDA because we wanted to join the UDA, and we joined the UDA because we felt that the country was being threatened to the extent where the security forces seemed to have their hands tied behind their back. So we felt that if they can't defeat the IRA, well, maybe we're going to have to try and do it illegally. And that's where the paramilitaries came into it. Well, the Ulster Freedom Fighters, which was an illegal organisation at the time, and a military organisation, the military wing of the UDA.
Do you remember your first few times doing we'll say like paramilitary / terrorist stuff? I'm not trying to get like an
Operation.
or anything,
An operation.
but that's
Yep. Yep. And it was
did you take to it? Did you take to it pretty well? Did you take a while to get somewhat good at it, or?
I think slowly but surely, when you become involved in things like that, you learn every time and you get stronger every time. It's not about your physical strength, it's about your mental strength. And it's about an operation isn't just an operation where let's go and do something. It's probably weeks in the planning. And that's what the hardest bit of it is. See, when you're land, and I don't care who you are, what you are, how hard you let on you are, but you will get butterflies in your stomach. If you're taking the law into your own hands with something like that, or if you're caught, you're going to go to jail for a very long time, or what you're doing is in the Bible says it's wrong. So in the lead up to that, you're sleeping on that. You know who your target is. You're watching your target maybe for weeks, maybe 2 weeks, maybe 6 weeks in some cases. So you've got to live with that for 6 weeks. Go, for fuck's sake, hope this goes right. Hope we're not caught. Hope we get away. Hope everything happens. Hope the target's there, blah, blah, blah. So that I always found in my experience, I found that as a hard. Hope everything goes according to plan. Because, yeah, it's not something that you just think you go and do that and it's easy. There's a lot comes with it. And then the after effect of it, living with it for the rest of your life.
Let me ask you about like the extent of the training you would have gotten. I know that at one stage you were trained by Brian Nelson, who, unbeknownst to you, was
Brian
probably,
Nelson, yep.
yeah, he
Yep.
probably, for anyone who doesn't know, he was ran by the same crowd who ran Steak Knife. He's often kind of loosely referred to as like the Loyalist Steak Knife, although they had different roles. Yeah, you were even trained by him like out in like the countryside.
Yep. What it was then, it was when you were the UDA, because it was legal, then you could go for your wings, your silver wings, your gold, your bronze wings, and your gold wings. If you passed them, then you were nominated for the Ulster Freedom Fighters. So what would have happened? You would have went on. It was very, very well. It was the brainchild of the late great John McMichael, right? And it was to train UDA members for a doomsday situation, but train them along the lines of they would know what to do if it broke out into civil war. So when we did the classes of 30, 50, or whatever we did, the courses would have lasted for several months. And it was just every training, every aspect of training that the British Army done, we done, because we were each instructor and leader were all ex-British soldiers, some of them from back home and someone from Scotland. And they were quite good guys, and they trained all us on just on your basic skills of battlefield skills. And that went on for weeks, months, and then you'd have passed your silver wings, your bronze wings, your silver wings, and then your gold. And then if you got your gold, you were nominated for the Ulster Freedom Fighters. Because here they had a volunteer who had all the training that a British soldier would have. Well, almost all the training that a British soldier would have. So he's ready to go into a military outfit where he would know how to work weapons and explosives, etc.
When was it? When was it that you found out that this guy who had been training you and you'd worked closely with, Brian Nelson, was in fact an
Well,
agent?
I personally worked along with Brian Nelson. I knew him. I didn't hang out with him a couple of times. I drunk with him. I didn't know what he was at all. I knew he was an intelligence officer because I worked with him. I mean, he'd have took me out. He'd have showed me things. He'd have I mean, and everything was fine. And my understanding then was he's an intelligence officer. So intelligence officer needs to come and show me where the target is, where he lives, what time he goes to work at, what time he comes out, what car he drives, blah, blah, blah. So he would have done that a couple of times with Nelson. But also, he would have been aware of who we were targeting. And I can honestly say that I was never arrested for anything to do with Nelson. Anything that I worked under Nelson, it's never came back to me and haunted me. I've never been arrested for it. So in that aspect, I don't believe that Nelson was an informer where he was sending men to jail and pointing out arm stumps. And I would say, like, when Nelson was going, I was arrested all the time under the Professional Terrorism Act, but not once in the time of Nelson. When Nelson was working for the FRU, obviously, did he pass my name on and say he's on this operation or this operation? And he may have knew roughly when the operation was going to take place, but hand on my heart, I could say that never going or coming back from an operation was we caught or apprehended or even arrested or questioned about anything to do with Nelson.
Yeah.
So then it just became clear, as you're saying, you're asking how did I know? It just became that he was arrested one time and he got out, he just bolted, and then it just shit started hitting the fans that he was working undercover. But like, he wasn't the only one. I mean, at that time it was a shock to me because I didn't believe things like this should happen or did happen within the organisation. But if I'm being honest with myself, it was a non-military organisation going back to them times. It was really a non-military organisation. And that's probably due because most of the leaders were on the payroll of the authorities, and that was to stop things like when we came. You look at the way things changed when people like me came, because obviously we got rid of you got to realise, like, especially West Belfast Brigade of UDA, it was infested with informers, not just your rank and file, the leadership. And not only West Belfast UDA, you go to the UDA leadership, the inner council. I mean, you go back to the guns in 1987 that David Payne was caught with. I mean, the police didn't just set up a roadblock and stop empty cars packed with assault rifles, grenades, and handguns. Now, only a handful of people around that table would have been aware of that. David Payne was one of them, but he was caught with the weapons. So 1, 2, or 3 of them people had indicated and informed their handlers that Payne's gone down there. They'll go down in 3 cars. Here's the colour of their cars. Here's the registration. Here's where they're going to. Set up a bogus roadblock as if it's just an ordinary roadblock. That was not just an ordinary roadblock. That was completely set. And that brings it to the top. That's not your £20 a week informer. That's someone who's sitting right up beside the leadership. So what I'm saying is, when you go back till when Nelson was there, I was shocked because what does that mean? He's been working all along. And then I panicked because I knew that I had been involved in things, but nobody's ever came rapping on my door.
I was going to say, I think it's quite clear that Nelson's role was not a guy to set up convictions of UFF and UDA. It was very much. It was
Yeah,
very.
but she had Nelson. Had I had the rank when Nelson was there, my God, I would have loved that man, because we would have went for the best IRA gunmen and bombers that were there. He could have put them on the plate for us through the FRU. In turn, the FRU didn't seem to want to arrest us or catch us. I would be happy with that. I don't see that as touting. I see that as a victory. So I would have Nelson would have been good, and I only wish that there was someone like Nelson when I was there. But you know what? Put your hands up. You can tell me and I'll give you a by ball as long as nobody's getting arrested here, and we're doing your dirty work. That's what it was, basically. Because anybody that Nelson was bringing forward just to target, they were the cream of the crop of the IRA. These were dangerous, dangerous people. And I know that for a fact. These weren't your ordinary wee IRA, man. These were top dangerous people. And I know that from experience. And these were the type of people that Nelson was passing over their details.
I was going to say, for anyone who mightn't have read about Brian Nelson, the theory, and I think it's very much true, was that he was like a link between the British security forces and Yi, and through him you could they could basically use Yi as proxies and kill a common enemy. The IRA.
Well, it seems that's the way it was, and I would have been a volunteer at that time, and I would have been an active volunteer. But I wasn't privy to any of this. Had I been privy to any of this, well, who was I to question the authority of my leaders? I'm just a foot soldier. But when you look back on it, I've studied into Nelson, and I've realised, but this man wasn't sending any of us to jail. This man wasn't getting any of us arrested. What was this man doing? Okay, he was an agent, but he was an agent. He was like on our side because he was a member of our organisation. He was working for the FRU, but you know what he was doing? He was getting information to the FRU of bad Republicans, not loyalists. Republicans are enemies. And you remember, you're only as good as the intelligence you get. And if somebody's giving you spot on intelligence, you're getting your target. But if you're just guessing who it is, you're not getting your target. So someone like Nelson, who at the behest of the FRU was putting dangerous fucking bombers or dangerous close quarter killers on a plate, and members of the UFF was getting off them and getting home again without getting caught. Good, brilliant, excellent.
On that note, on that note, you said in your book that you believe Pat Finucane's murder to be orchestrated from on high. I can't quite remember but you said you believe it to be like that type where the security force wants someone dead and they use a loyalist
Well,
paramilitary group as a
that's all in the public domain from start to finish. Was it Douglas Hogg? He said in the House of Parliament that solicitors sympathetic to the IRA. I mean, I think he named him. So there was a start from the top of government right down. Obviously, and if you read, it's all in the public domain who allegedly was involved in it and who allegedly supplied the guns and allegedly targeted him and allegedly. I mean, everyone that seemed to be involved in that have been publicly linked to being either agents of the FRU, the Special Branch, or MI5. So I don't know. Obviously, the security forces didn't like him. I know that from experience from being in Castlereagh. I know they didn't like him, and he was seen as an IRA member, and a very, very important one, and that's why obviously he was the Ulster Freedom Fighters went after him.
Speaking of which, there was a guy on the job, I believe, maybe one of the shooters, Ken Barrett, who later admitted to RUC that he had been on it, and then they recruited him based on that. That's another fella that you worked closely in there, Ken Barrett, right?
Ken Barrett has worked for everybody. Anybody would take him. He was a compulsive liar and a compulsive gambler, and he had a problem with his tonsils. What I say about that, he liked talking about this, that, and the other big things that he'd done that he didn't do. My memory serves me right. I think he got life for Finucane. And he actually, if you want to go into the logistics of it, the law of it, he actually got life for something that he didn't do. He actually got life for being one of the gunmen on the Finucane job. And I don't believe that to be the case. But anyway, he got life for that. The simple reason he bragged and boasted and was secretly recorded by MI5 saying that he was one of the gunmen and he shot him so many times. I believe that's wrong. And I believe that if he was involved in it, he got life for something that he didn't do anyway, because he said he was a gunman. And I don't believe that's the case. But it is what it is. He's been caught with his trousers down working for Special Branch at CID and whoever else would take him. But there's no doubt he'll be brought forward to answer a few questions at the Finucane inquiry, I'm sure.
On the note of collusion and receiving information on targets from security forces to ye. Other than we'll get into Derek Adjei later on. Other than that, even if there's not specifics you can go into, but has there been other times when members of security forces kind of like funneled information to ye to give you intel and information on
Well,
targets?
there's one incident. It's in the public domain, and the soldier was actually charged and sent to prison for his role in it. Whereas a soldier called Derek Adjei, he was a Royal Marine, and he was stationed in White Rock, Fort White Rock in West Belfast. And he alleged, it came out in court, and it was in the public domain, that he came, his colleagues was being shot, and he knew who was doing it, but he couldn't do nothing. Again, he was in uniform, he couldn't break the law. And he was stopping these people on the street on a daily basis. Some of them were spitting on his face, laughing about his colleagues being shot, and he couldn't do nothing. But he was frustrated, and he had the Ulster blood on him because he was actually from Northern Ireland, right? But he was a Marine commando. So he alleged that what can I do with these people? Like, what are they doing? But he heard of the UFF and he heard of C-company. So he told the police that he took leave, and he came to Shankill, and he sought out C-company, and he sought out their leader, and he struck up a relationship with him and passed him intelligence. And he admitted that the intelligence that he passed on, and I think some of the intelligence, if not all of it, was worked on and acted on. And he was sentenced, I think it was 3.5 or 4 years in prison for soliciting murder. Whereas he, obviously, that's a case of what you're asking about. But I wouldn't see that as collusion. I would see that as a disgruntled British soldier who couldn't do nothing against the people who were killing his colleagues. But he knew he knew of people who would do something, but they would be breaking the law. But he was willing to take that gamble and risk, and he came and
it's still collusion. Like no matter, even if the reason for doing it is like a personal reason, it's still collusion. That doesn't change the fact.
Well. I wouldn't use the word collusion. I would use the word hitting the jackpot. From my point of view, that's the way I would deem that. I wouldn't consider that collusion. I would consider that a striking gold. Because remember what I said to you earlier on, you're only as good as the intelligence you get. And if you have someone who's in the ops room and who knows everything and passing that on to the people that's looking at these people, that's gold dust. Times, places, dates, safe houses, places that's out of bounds, gold dust. From someone like me, point of view, who's a military leader, that is gold dust. Don't drive. Roadblocks will be there at this time. Roadblocks will be taken away. Roadblocks are going up at this time. That is gold dust. That is gold dust.
So other than Adjei,
I don't see that as collusion.
Fair enough.
Actually, I treat that guy as a hero still to this day.
I mean, not to keep getting into it, but like you say, hitting the jackpot. Something can be collusion and also hitting the jackpot.
I know what you mean. Yeah, but from my point of view, I don't see that as collusion because I'm in with the paramilitaries. So I don't see that as collusion. I see that as you're being aided by a disgruntled British soldier or whoever it is, policeman. I don't see that as you're working hand in hand with him here. That's a single individual who paid for his sins. You remember, he went to jail for his sins. So he wasn't colluding with the British government or the special branch or MI5. And he was just an individual who came on his own and soaked out the people and passed on information to them.
I see what you mean. It wasn't like a systematic thing.
No, people would see it as collusion, but I don't see that as collusion.
Fair enough. Okay, so other than Adjei, like again, if you can't go into details, that's completely fine. But there must have been other, even if it wasn't a soldier, there must have been other security forces of some kind who handed you information like that. Not including Adjei, not including Nelson.
Well, let's put it like this: you had soldiers, you had policemen, UDR men, who were constantly being targeted by the Republican, especially the Provisional IRA. Now, these people are living in fear because they don't know the bomb could be under their car next. They could be the next soldier blew up in a jeep. They don't know. They know who their enemies is, but also they know the loyalists aren't killing them. They're no threat to the Loyalists. We are no threat to them. And so, would you get a sympathetic soldier, sympathetic RUC man? Absolutely. When I say sympathetic, when you go in and out of Castlereagh, surely you come, they see your face, they know who you are, they know what you're being arrested for, so they know they know what type of person you are. So sometimes you would get sympathy from the odd RUC, UDR, or British soldier, more so the British soldiers, because they were being, I mean, we weren't their enemies, so and they wouldn't see us as their enemies. So you would get I would just call it, you would get some friendly exchanges. That's what I would say. That's what I would call it. A lot of that.
You mentioned there that you're a military man, and that C Company is a military group. You describe it as. You did have a reputation for being maybe not like party animals, but like partying mad and not being quite like these kind of upright more soldier-like paramilitaries that you'd see that you get more in other groups. Do you think that kind of damaged your legacy, your image to some degree?
What way? Like I missed up with you. What way did you mean that?
As in your group, from what I've read, and not just
Yeah.
not just that, but
No, I know where you're coming from. What were you saying is C Company, like when they were saying that they weren't hitting military targets, like
no. I mean more kind of like reputation for partying and doing a bit of drugs, and
no,
even
no, no,
and even
no,
and
no,
even
no.
sitting
But
there, sitting there for an
listen.
evening and
See
deciding
what you do.
spontaneously to do.
See what you do outside of service. Let's call it service or active service, whatever you want to call it. That what you do outside that is nobody's business. If you want to drink pints of Guinness or to do whatever you want, that's entirely up to you. But when you're in service, none of that will happen. Reputation. There's no way a man's going to go on an operation when he's drink on him or drugs on him. That's just a non-goer. And when C Company were a very, very, very professional and dedicated outfit, there's no way that any of them members would go into an operation like that because they were going into enemy territory and deep into enemy territory. You would have to do them with a clear head and a clear mindset.
In fairness,
So
I did like in my research, I did hear ex-members saying that like there will be occasions when you'd all be sitting around drinking, and then it would be a spur of the moment kill, and within kind of two
well,
hours,
I can tell you
within like
something.
2 hours, the job
Right,
is done,
right,
and you're
right,
back. You're back to
right.
celebrating.
I can tell you something. When I was in charge, there was no instance like that that's ever been a spur of a moment. Anything that we were involved in was carefully planned, carefully targeted, sometimes for weeks, maybe months. There was no spur of the moment stuff here or yabba dabba do. That's no. C Company. It's easy to criticize. You remember, C Company was a victim of their own success. C Company was good at what they'd done. See, when you become good at what you do, the media are not going to say they're good men. They went up the falls and done this. They're going to put you down. They're going to criticize you to the highest level. But you just have to look at their actions. Just look at C Company's actions and just go to the special branch and ask special branch who was their biggest fucking headache. It was C Company because they were the most active. And just ask the IRA who they were more feared of. You go to top, ask your Jerry Adamses, your Brian Gillans, your Eddie Copelands, who, when they were going to bed at night, were thinking, hoping, well, don't come through our door. And I guarantee you, the answer would be C Company, UFF.
Again, I'm not saying that you ordered these or were involved in these, but there were most certainly C Company kills that were like driving into a Catholic area and kind of shooting the first guy that they came across. Like you can't tell me those took like weeks or months of planning.
No. I know, and nothing justifies what I'm going to say, but when I talk about Darkly, where the INLA went in and slaughtered Christian parishioners, Protestant Christian parishioners. Now, would that not sicken any Protestant or anger any Protestant, especially a loyalist paramilitary? And then you go on the Enniskillen, you go on the Lemon, you go on the Shankill Bomb, you go on the T-Bomb, the list goes on and on and on. It don't come much more sectarian than that. 10 Protestants blew up, workmen. I mean, T-Bond, burn, Chris, you know what I mean? So, with a loyalist paramilitary, we hate when they're just nakedly sectarian. That you just have to look what the Republicans was. It was the Republicans was only making loyalist paramilitaries. Some groups of them react to their actions, and some of their actions, which was some of the most appalling, to come out of the troubles.
Do you think
so?
that
If you did see, if you're still picking out wee bits and pieces where yes. The UDA, UVF, every paramilitary group over there, they're all guilty of sectarian shootings. Be it UDA, UVF, or IRA, or sorry, UDA and the IRA, they have shot innocent Protestants. And yes, the UDA and UVF have shot innocent Catholics. That's what happened. That's what the conflict was. That's why the conflict ended, because it couldn't go on any longer. Because yes, it wasn't 100% right. The IRA wasn't 100% right. UVF nor the UDA. Times they got it wrong. Times they were just ruthless, and times they were just naked sectarian. But that was the sad past conflict, and that's over. Thank God. I just wish that had never have happened, because none of them incidents that I've just outlined to you would have occurred if them politicians had it done on the back of the civil rights fallout, got round the table and not let it went the way it went. All them, 5,000 people would have been alive today. Soldiers, police, Protestants, Catholics, but it didn't happen, and that's what happened.
I'm pretty sure I saw a figure from Kane, the respected kind of archive, and it said that like at least 80% of C companies kills kind of around that time were civilian.
I don't know what the percentage rate was, but I know C company was very, very active. They were the most active, the UFF in the province. And I couldn't comment on any of their targets, whether they're innocent or not innocent. And here's the thing, everything I need to remind you too. See, the Republicans were good at their propaganda war, right? An innocent Catholic who loyalist paramilitaries would know that he's not innocent because they have his montage, Provisional IRA or INLA. But the man's never been charged. He's never had a conviction for Republican membership. So remember, for their support in America, they couldn't go to the IRA, the Americans for support and saying, look, they shot an IRA man, because the IRA would go, well, all's fair in love and war. That's what happens. So they had to see everybody was innocent to them, and everybody was an innocent Catholic. And I know of a couple of murals since the peace process. There's a couple of murals in Republican areas where Catholics were shot by loyalist paramilitaries, and they were claimed at the time to be innocent Catholics. They're now, there's 3 stands that come to my mind. 3 of them are now on the Roll of Honour on murals and Republican areas in West and North Belfast. And these at the time when they were shot were innocent Catholics. But now in peacetime, they're a member of whatever company of the Provisional IRA. So again, it was their war of, you can't let the Americans know that we want them to think that the loyalists are slaughtering us because we're just ordinary Catholics. But if you start saying that their IRA man was shot last night, the Americans are going to go, oh, well, that's what happens in a war. But if you say it's an innocent Catholic, they're going to go, oh, well, they're slaughtering them. The IRA were good at what they're doing. But I know from experience that there's 3 that I know that is on Republican Roll of Honour. And at the time, I can remember listening to the news and the news reporting that they were innocent Catholics. The fact that they had never any convictions, criminal convictions. But I'm sure that the people in the organisations would have read their files, and that's, I mean, as long as they were satisfied what they were doing, and that's where the UDA at the time made a blunder, the old leadership, because they were sick of the IRA or the Nationalist Republicans coming out saying he was an innocent Catholic, and they'd done it with McMichael, but they shot themselves in the foot when they produced. It came across McMichael as an innocent Catholic, but the UDA made public his montage. When security forces suspected him of a professional IRA member, and he'd been arrested so many times for IRA activity. So when the UDA shot him, and because of the outcry, they went and made his montage public, and that's where John Stevenson was born. So they actually shot themselves on the foot for doing so. And the way I always looked at it, as long as the volunteer's going on an operation, he will know who his target is. He will know that. He will have studied it. He will have read the intelligence to have on him. And as long as the men involved in that operation know who their target was and know what they've done, the hell what other people think or don't think. As long as them people know what they've read it, but they're not going to make it public. Here's how we know he's in the IRA or the INLA because of this. Made the mistake before, but making it public and create the whole statement.
It's also happened. I've heard that that the C company might go out to target Mr. X, whoever John Smith, but then he's not there, so they take they just take like the closest fella to him, and that's to them that's to them somewhat of a win. It's like a draw instead of a win. That did I mean based on what previous members of C company have said, that did happen.
I think to be honest, it's that you come back to that not stupid book. That wasn't even people contributing that book weren't even members. They wouldn't even knew anything about the UFF. Hence the fact you read the people that have been able to do all sorts of shootings, and then people had nothing whatsoever to do anything. So that's how much them people knew. They weren't military at all. They thought they knew because they heard someone shot someone every time the news came on and the UFF claimed it. There with that shooting, they went, "Oh, he done that." I can guarantee that stupid book. I can countless that the men weren't involved, had nothing whatsoever to do with them. But it's the fools who contributed to that book, and they're the fools that saying something like C-company went out, and if the neighbour wasn't in there, went in next door and shot him. That's not the case. These people would never been on operation. My understanding, when volunteers go on an operation, if their target's not there, they'll return back to base. The target's there, they engage. But if he's not, you don't go and rap the next door or the door next down, but you back to base. So again, I must emphasise most of that shit, not on first books, a load of what it is, nonsense. It's not 90% of it was lies, and the people contributed. They wouldn't even have had a gun in their hands in their lives. You take that from me because I know some of the people that's been behind it.
And would I be correct in saying that despite your numerous attempts, you actually didn't you didn't kill or even injure any IRA men, right?
Me?
Well, no,
Me?
I mean C company at the time. I think from what I've
No,
read.
you're wrong. See, you're wrong, and I mean that's.
I mean,
Right, let's put it
are
like
we
this.
talking
Right,
about
let's put it, stuff that's been in the public domain. Right, Jerry Adams. Who's he? Jerry Adams.
again? Who is he?
Right. C-company. Well, Jerry Adams. Right. C-company attacked his house. Right. Eddie Copeland, top IRA man. C-company attacked him multiple times. Brian Gillen, C-company members were caught en route to do him one morning. So they don't come any higher than them three within the IRA.
Gino Gallagher, you threw a bomb at Gino Gallagher's house in response to
Gino Gallagher's house. The heart of West Belfast Republicanism, Sinn Conley House. Again, C-company attacked that. Not once, not twice, but 3 times in 11 days. That's the heart of Republicans. And then to make matters worse, they went to the offices at the load of at the bottom of the falls and attacked that with rocket launcher too. So C-company went right in after the top. But it's easy to paint their brochure C-company with this, that, and that. C-company were warriors, brave freedom fighters who went where no one else would go, and that was right into the devil's fucking playing field. And the IRA didn't like that. The Brian Gillens of this world, the Eddie Copelands of this world, and C-companies went after all them and more, and they've been successful against others, which I can't say here on camera. And I had a great knowledge and a great insight into C-company, and I know their successes, and I know. So it's easy to criticise them because they were good. The police will hate them. Everybody will hate them. The media will hate them. They're not going to say good things about them. They're not going to put a set of wings in me and the Sunday word to say, look at Johnny Adair, he's an angel, look what he's doing for C-company. No, they're going to say horrendous things about us because what they seen was what we were doing, and their eyes was wrong, but in our eyes it was right. Albeit, if you're caught, you're going to jail for a long time, or you make a shot dead or going here or coming back. But the media is not going to glorify us. The media is going to give us horrible names like Mad Dog and put us right down as far as they can. But that's part. that's part of it. You take them up for the street. You can't stick the heat. You get straight out of the kitchen.
Sorry, so you would have seen, I think you've said this, that Sinn Féin, like members of Sinn Féin, were like the same thing as IRA members. To your
They were just the same. They were one of the same. Only some of them wore shirts and suits, but they were IRA.
I see. Oh, and we spoke in one of our phone calls before. You said that that you don't believe the IRA ever had any legitimate targets. So like even killings of soldiers and stuff were would be
Yeah,
would
but
would be on a level with killing civilians, pretty much.
sounds good to the Americans and then the rest of their support throughout Europe and the world that legitimate targets a British soldier or policeman, a member of the judiciary system. I mean, that was them selling their propaganda war machine. They didn't have no legitimacy at all. The IRA had no legitimacy at all to lift the gun and lift the bomb and blow our towns and villages to smithereen and kill our people. Not just British soldiers and police officers, but Protestant people, working class Protestant men going to work in the morning, coming home from work at night, getting shot dead. Where's the legitimacy in that? And you're probably going to turn around and say, well, where was your legitimacy? That was our response to what they were doing. This is what C-comp and other loyalist paramilitaries, that was their response to what the Republicans was doing to our Protestant working class people.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you touched on it yourself, but like I think some of the killings of a lot of the people that C Company killed, yeah, it does it does
Listen.
it does sound hypocritical to me.
No, listen. All killings were wrong. No matter if it was a wee 18-year-old or 17-year-old British soldier, no matter if it was a wee RUC reservist living down in South Armagh, no matter was it a Protestant or a Catholic, man, woman, or child, they were all wrong. They should never have happened. And it's just a sad state of affairs that it didn't happen. But the reality is it happened, and we were all part of it. Not just Johnny Adair, thousands of people in loyalist and Republican areas, communities. We were all born into that. We felt this is what you have to do if you come from these communities. You remember, this wasn't like Jack the Ripper, one man doing all this. You had hundreds and hundreds of men and engaging in this type of activity on both sides. So it wasn't just one serial killer like Jack the Ripper, where you could say, oh, but you had men who believed in what they were doing, people who believed in freeing Ireland, and people who believed in defending Ulster. We were the Protestants, they were the Republicans, Catholics wanting to free Ireland. We were wanting to defend it from the IRA violent attacks.
I mean, not to get into like the whole history of it, but like in fairness, I think the IRA, at least initially anyway, were justified in using violence because the civil rights movement was met with violence, not only violence, but the authorities either joining in or letting it happen. So if that happens, you're left in a position where you're like, okay, I think force is the way to go because we tried peaceful means and we got baited.
Right, okay, I get where you're coming from, but where justifies them as killing British soldiers? You're going from civil rights to the IRA.
Because
What's justification in that?
Because they see them as an occupying.
Occupied, fuck all. This is United Kingdom. That's part of the United Kingdom. Fuck all to do with Ireland.
But
if they were so passionate about a United Kingdom, why didn't they all just move down to Southern Ireland? If they hated the Brits so much, why not leave it? If they detested and despised us so much, why not leave places like Ardoyne, the Falls, and Andersonstown, and wherever else they come from, and head down south? We have no qualms about that. We're going to have 5,000 people still alive.
I'll tell you because like if you believe first of all if you believe that British presence there and part of the island of Ireland being the UK it is illegitimate. Hold on. If you believe hold on, let me finish. If you believe it to be illegitimate, then the solution isn't just move away because that's like being a pussy and just saying letting them win. Like,
let me put this to you. Civil rights, 1969. There was no British soldiers here. Then I think about them times the Protestants were outnumbered the Catholics 2-1 if my geography
about that, yeah.
Right. So we had the upper hand, right? The Catholics were cornered. Oh, God, they're going to kill us. They're going to wipe us out. So what happens? They sent the British Army in to protect the Catholics, right?
Initially, yeah.
Oh, but listen. The Catholics love that. Oh, this is great. You saved our lives. Oh, you saved our lives. Let it run for 6 months till the Protestants, the Loyalists back down their attacks, ease off their attacks. The British soldiers get in. Now, remember, their whole entire Catholic communities was grateful and loved the British Army at that time. And then when the Loyalists ceased in attacking, the IRA was born again. And then we need something. Look, it looks good here. We've got support in this community. Let's justify and legitimize this. Oh, Brits out. Why would you want the Brits out when they only came in to protect us? That's what happened. They came in to save the Catholics at the time.
Yeah.
So then, after saving them,
initially they were there to save them, but then you have things like internment, for example, and Bloody Sunday, and that's. I mean, you can't just ride on the coattails of the fact that they were here originally to defend them once you go doing Bloody Sundays and Ballymurphy massacres, and so like you can't just say, oh well, they came originally to defend it, so we have to stick to that.
But you see what you're talking about, Bloody Sunday and Ballymurphy. Right, let's be honest. There was gunmen from the crowd exchanging gunfire with the law of the land, the British Army and the RUC.
Not on Bloody Sunday.
Gunmen. They were throwing bombs. They were discharging rounds. The same in Ballymurphy. The same in Bloody Sunday. And the British Army responded, and that's how they responded. I mean, these boys weren't used to situations like Northern Ireland where they were like running battles like that. You didn't get that in England, Scotland, or Wales. Then these young soldiers are through in the London Derry. They're petrol bombed every day. Then gunmen come out with Thompson submachine guns and blast bombs and start throwing them. I mean, the soldiers responded, and they responded in such a way that so many people lost their lives. And the same in the other one.
I'm pretty sure on Bloody Sunday they weren't shot.
I'm pretty sure. No, yeah, just need the inquiry. You'll find the inquiry. There was armed men. There was shots exchanged from Rossfield Flats. There was, and that's what the old soldiers do. They returned fire, and obviously they returned fire a wee bit heavily handed.
But how come? Okay, but how come every single person shot and killed was cleared of having a gun or throwing something, or like it can't be the case that like they were having a legitimate and everybody got shot was innocent. Like, no.
I can't speak for the soldiers that discharged the rounds. I don't know the situation he was in. I don't know if the people that he shot or he thought he was shot and was standing beside a man throwing a bomb or a man pulling out a machine gun. I don't know. That's I know nothing. All I know is it was 13 shot dead and the paratroopers done it. And
Fair. Oh yeah, okay. The Bloody Sunday is its own kettle of fish. Okay, we needn't get into that anymore. I did want to ask you. I've heard it said. I can't remember the quote. It wasn't from that book. Don't worry. But I've heard it said that if you had been, let's say you had been born like not even that far away, and you're in a Republican area and you had the same background and stuff. I've heard it said that that the IRA kind of like might not have taken you given your crime background, but like the likes of like the INLA would have. Do you think that's true?
Probably. I don't care. I don't look. It wasn't about who would want to take you. When you feel like a young man, a teenager, and you can see, you turn on the news every day, someone shot, policeman, soldier, or civilian, mainly a Protestant they are. And the policemen are usually mainly Protestants, and so is the UDR men. You have a sense of fear. When you hear a man's getting shot going to work, you think it could be you because you're a Protestant. This is what the IRA do. This is what the Catholics are doing on the Protestant people. So you end up, you have to be seen to be doing something against these people. It's a fear. It's a sense of fear that drives you into that position that you're in, to try and do something, to take away that fear and to sort of way protect your people, your Protestant people who were, as we would see, be under attack on a daily basis. And okay, we're moving on here from the 70s where it was running battles with sticks, battles and petrol bombs. But when it came to the 80s and the 90s, it was more isolated gun attacks. And that was the more frightening aspect of it all. You didn't know who was going to be shot next. But it was always, you could always throw a stone week in and week out that someone had been shot in and around about you or near you. And that fear drove people like me to want to do more to try and to prevent that's here from happening against our people.
Okay, so not speaking on like a moral level. I'm talking about like competency and just being like good paramilitaries, if you want to use that phrase. Obviously your circumstances were very different from the IRA. Ye weren't like actively fighting the British Army and the RUC, so your fight, of course, was way different given you're not up against these crowds. Just to list some of the things that like the IRA were able to pull off, and this isn't glorifying at all. It's just kind of speaking to their ability. The likes of Warren Point, Ballygolly, Barracks attack, being able to counter ambush. One second. Hold
without
on.
a shadow of a doubt.
Being able to counter ambush British Army,
Yeah.
the various prison breaks, nearly taking out Thatcher. Do you think if your circumstance was different and you were the ones up against the British Army and the security forces, do you think you'd have been competent enough to be able to do the likes of that? The things I just named?
First of all, it would have been based around support. And do I think that the Loyalists would have had that support network that Republicans had throughout the world? I don't think we would have had it. I don't think we had much support in America. I think the only main support we had was here in Scotland. Whereas the IRA,
I think
the IRA were good
Ontario, Canada is known as year
Canada, yeah. But I mean, the Republicans throughout the world had support. And it's evident in the fact that they could carry out operations all over Europe and British Army bases and all over the United Kingdom. For God's sake, with respect, Loyalist paramilitaries couldn't even get a couple of fucking handguns in from Scotland to Belfast without being caught. The IRA were getting tons and tons of fucking ships from Libya and further afield. I mean, so we didn't have support. Back to what you asked, the IRA had a great support network. And with that support and that backing, yes, you'll have a good army because your support, your money, and your arms is going to arm and train that army. And we didn't have that because we just seen ourselves as defenders. And if I'm being brutally honest, the only shipment the arms Loyalists ever got was that shipment in 1987. And fucking half of that was caught. Half of that was caught. And had we had something like that in the earlier days, I mean, the IRA was using Armalites in the 80s. We were using fucking homemade machine guns. It didn't work.
Yeah, you're definitely right about having a wider network globally, and worth noting the 3 or 4 Gaddafi shipments, not including the one in very early 70s because he took a big break, but they only started kind of late 80s, so that does leave.
The SAM tax came.
I'm talking about like ability. Like, do you think even C Company? Do you think if C Company needed to, they could go off and pull off a Warren Point or take out like a Barracks, like some of the East Tyrone lads, or even ambush British soldiers an ambush there.
Yes, I get where you're coming from. C Company were some of all the guys that I worked under. They were all the most bravest, dedicated men that I could ever meet. And I mean that. I'm not just saying that because of who they are. These men would have went through brick walls to get at Republicans and through brick walls again. These men showed no fear. Not just one of them, not just two of them. Every one that was a member of that 2nd Battalion C Company, they were, each and every one of them was as committed and as dedicated as the other one beside them. And them men showed, them men were, even to this day, like, they were the bravest men, the bravest bunch of men I've ever met in my life. And I mean brave. I mean brave. So what you're saying is you think they would have had the capabilities. I know for certain they had the fucking balls. Now, if the people who could train them in the way of bombs and the way that the Provisional IRA, of course they would. These men would have went into the South Armagh after Slab Murphy. These men would have went anywhere. They had the balls. But it's a different type. You're talking about IRA with a border, planting bombs and running command wires. Loyalists weren't really into bombs. It was only at the latter stages of the conflict, when the early stages of the peace talks, I think C Company did get some plastic explosives into its armory, and I think they used it. They used it successfully a couple of times. But I think I was in jail at the time. Like, but I believe that they got some plastic explosives then, or explosives along them lines, and I think they used it. But I mean, we were coming to the end of the conflict then. But had C Company had that type of sophisticated bombs, it would have been a different playing field too. Because C Company's operations were all like hand on and get into the enemy's territory, whereas lots of the IRA's operations were coming up in the middle of the night and putting up another booby trap car bomb under somebody's car, which is easy.
So would you view the INLA and the IPLO as in a different league in terms of competency?
Absolutely. The only one you could credit them with was who did the Derry Neve, was it?
Derry Neve.
Yeah, the Houses of Parliament, up there in the booby trap car. The INLA and the IPLO, the IPLO breakaway splinter group, they were just nakedly sectarian. You couldn't really credit them on much. They're dropping well. The INLA done that. They were responsible for Darkley. They done Uri Neve. I don't think that you could credit them with much more. Like, they came on to the Shankill, the IPLO, the splinter group. They were just nakedly sectarian. That have went to loyalist pubs and clubs and rattled them with gunfire.
I've heard again. I wish I could think of where I read it or saw it, but that the IPLO were kind of on some level would kind of put the fear into a bit more, just given that they'd be more spontaneous. They'd be less likely to do like a big kind of plan thing that would take weeks and stuff. They would kind of spur the moment, drive in and go shoot. And
no doubt about that. And that's the way we would esteem them. As we knew that if anybody's coming on the Shankill and sees IPLO and they don't care who they're shooting, they will go for UVF. They will go for ordinary Protestants. They will go for shopkeepers. They don't care as long as it's a prod. Yes, what you're saying, would there be a fear about the Shankill about them? It's just there would have been. Yep.
So to talk me through, like, to get into the nuts and bolts, I did there were some operations that C Company did that would involve like a house takeover, and these would be a bit more sophisticated than just going to go shoot someone, like, taking over a house closed. Can you take me into what that would kind of involve? Obviously not talking about any specific ones, but
yeah,
generally speaking.
Well, it's my understanding. I think there was several house taken over and Republican Andersonstown, West Belfast, by members of C Company. Well, that probably would have meant that 3 men would have went into enemy territory. They would have been armed. They would have entered at someone's house, maybe overlooking the target's house, and they would have pretended, I'm only guessing, they would have pretended that they were Provisional IRA waiting on an army patrol coming through to get the confidence of the family. So they would have believed that they're in the members of the IRA and they're waiting on an army, because these things do happen in Republican areas. So loyalists would have been, I'm sure, wise enough to know that. So I would guess that's the type of language that they moved, that win the family over, and then they would wait till their target arrived and then engage. And I think that would be a hard thing to do. Like, although the IRA done it against me on several occasions, coming into the heart of the Shankill and taking over a house, but I think that would be a very, very hard thing to do, because it would take a very, very brave man to carry out such an operation, because you're in fear at all times. It's not a couple of seconds jumping out of a car and shooting somebody. It's sitting in enemy territory, and everything could go through in your head, but you just focus on the one thing. And don't. But I'm sure, like, that would be a brave thing to do, and a courageous thing to do from the men that just engage in it.
Speaking of guns and stuff, like at C Company's peak, we'll say, at, like, let's say, given an hour's notice or 2 or 3 hours notice, how many guns do you think you could have got your hands on, and what level of firearm?
I'm only guessing. Well, I'm guessing that with C Company, as you know, like, C Company have used all sorts of weapons from. It's been in the public domain with the type of weapons that C Company were using in some of their operations. What would have been the FISA 58P, Czechoslovakian assault rifle, the RPG-7 rocket launcher, grenades, fragmentation grenades. Obviously, it was the stuff that would have come in from that shipment in 1987. So basically, that would have been the type of weapons that C Company were using in latter times, along with other small arms and machine guns, etc.
What sort of place would you have them for the ones that are more readily available? Because I guess you have to have weapons that are more readily available. What sort of
Well,
places would they be hidden?
I think to be a part of an ASU would look after their own weapons, I would believe. And I would sure an ASU would maybe have an assault rifle and a powerful handgun and maybe rounds of ammunition and grenades. And that would be readily available within the dependent. They wouldn't have to dig it up, I don't believe. Or wait for 2 days or 48 hours to get it. I think they would be able to put their hands on something within an hour.
Gotcha.
I think C Company would have always had weapons floating because they were so active. There was no time for greasing weapons up and burying them in C Company because C Company was so active. You always needed weapons, and they needed them ready at an hour's notice.
I'll ask you about these multiple attempts and some very close on your life, but let me first go to in 1987, John McMichael, who at the time was the UDA deputy commander, he was blown up at a booby-trapped
Yep.
car bomb
Yep.
for the Provisional IRA. Do you remember hearing about that and how you felt?
Yes, I do. I felt disgusted, because I knew he was one of the most highly respected leaders that the UDA ever produced. He was an intelligent man. He was a non-sectarian man. He was obviously political man, but he was also a military man because he knew, come with what the IRA was doing, you need a military backup. And that man was from what I know of him, I'd been in his company several times, never worked with a man like, but one of the best leaders that our organisation ever had. And when the IRA took him out, they just took the leadership of the UDA out. They really did. Because he did such a loss to the organisation. Such a loss to the organisation.
Did you feel like personally vulnerable? If they can, I mean, obviously at the time you probably
absolutely, and the thing that struck me after that, because he was such a high pro member of the UDA, but again, it shows you the way the UDA was then, the leadership. There was no retaliation for that. There was no retaliation for that, and I find that strange. Why did the UFF or UDA or whoever you want to call them go out on a revenge mission for Big John? It didn't happen. I found that strange. Whereas C Company, if a part-time member of the UDR or an RUC reservist Protestant was shot in the country, C Company would have went out and retaliated for that. But here you have the leader of our organisation, and nothing happened. I find that. And then you fast forward that you brought in Remy Elder. Again, nothing happened. Had I been on the ground at the time, now, when that happened to John, I was just a foot soldier. I couldn't dictate what happens and what doesn't happen. However, have I had the rank that I had with Big John, when that happened to John, there would have been hell to pay for what had happened to him. And I make no excuses about that. But unfortunately, I wasn't. And it would never have brought John back. But such a loss to our organisation. Such a loss.
I believe it was in 1993 on the 3rd of March. You came extremely close to losing your life. You were shot with an AK-47 in the car. Can you take us to that day and describe?
I was in the middle of Shankill, and the IRA had been targeting me unsuccessfully. So this day in particular, me and my big bodyguard gets into the car, and there was an IRA unit sitting yards in the same colour car that I was driving. I was driving a white Vauxhall Cavalier. They had taken over a house in the Old Park Avenue and held a family hostage who also owned a white Vauxhall Cavalier. So was there significance in that? I don't know. But anyway, we both got into my car, and my big bodyguard was always security conscious. And he hit me in the arm. He said, "Johnny," and I looked over at the car, and I seen the three guys in it. But the thing that made me not think believe it was suspicious is because when we go on operations, you wear hoods. So these guys didn't wear hoods. So right away, that took away any fear. Well, it was a good move from them, because if they'd been sitting with fucking hoods and all rolled up, I don't know. But they didn't, and they seemed calm enough. So I felt within myself that everything's okay. And I put my hand down, my eyes to turn the key, and my big bodyguard just hit me. And all I could see in slow motion was, it seemed like slow motion, fucking the glass coming in around me. And then I just automatically fucking fell on the steering wheel. I don't know, but they peppered my car with the rest of the bullets. And if I had showed you the car when I got it back from forensic a couple of weeks later and told you that I was in that car and survived it, you wouldn't have believed me. There was bullet holes right through the headrest. There was bullet holes right through the chair. But at that stage, I had been on the ground. So when they drove off, they believed the big bodyguard got out and run. He got hit in the leg, but he was able to escape. So when they get in the car and drove up their getaway, one of them had his arm out the window with the AK, because witnesses had heard him, seen him, and they were shouting, "Where the fuck's your Johnny Adair now?" They assumed that I was dead. See, when I fell onto the steering wheel, they wrongly guessed that one of the rounds hit me in the head, and they didn't. The only one, I got grazed in the side. But had I shown you the car after and told you that I was in that and survived, you wouldn't have believed me. It was peppered with fucking bullets. And all, right up at the window and all where I was sitting. And I was down on the floor on the steering wheel. So that was a close shave of that. They hit my bodyguard in the leg out there, and they got away. And the significance of that too, it was on a Saturday afternoon, and when they dumped the car, they dumped it right outside of Sean Graham's boogies. Shows that when the TV cameras would come up, the video of the dumped car, you would get the background of the boogies and Sean Graham's. And remember, UFF had attacked Sean Graham's boogies on the road prior to that. So what they were doing was sending a psychological message to me too, and to the UFF. Sean Graham's boogies, a white Cavalier, or maybe it was just innocent, but they could have drove into Carrera Court, which was 300 yards below the boogies, but they drove, and it would have made their escape easier, but they drove right on up. And my belief was so that the camera could get the car with the boogies in the background to send the message that the IRA shot Johnny Adair, but I survived it. They were responsible. The UFF was responsible for the Ormond Road boogies, Sean Graham's. I think that's the psychological tell it. But I was lucky that time. And then
sorry. Let me just to take it back to there. Like that evening, we'll say, like when you can finally relax and you know you're safe, but you can process what happened. Does that what's that like, having coming that close to death?
Well, it's happened to me so many times. So I know it should affect me worse. If you don't see the thing that I have, and it's a gift, I have mental strength. And it's, if that would have happened to anyone else and they ended up, their head would go, understandably, or their nerves would go at least, right? But because it's happened to me so many times, it's strengthened me. I learn from mistakes. I learn from my wrongdoings. Something bad happens to me, I'll learn from that and I'll get better. So from all these attacks, it didn't affect me the way it would have affected an ordinary person. It made me stronger, made me more determined, and made me more committed to go after the ones that were doing it. Because it happened to me so many times. But the answer to your question is yes, it was frightening. At the time, when you hear the thuds of them fucking rounds coming, and people say this, but when you're on the receiving end of it, it is slow motion. I don't know how, but it's all slow motion. There must be just something triggered off in your brain that makes it slow motion within your body, because it becomes slow motion. And it's happened to me so many times. I don't get used to it, but I get easier. It becomes the mist again, thankfully. Whereas at the time when it's happening, it is one of the most frighteningest things that can happen to you. Your nerves just take over, and you just it's like. And I've been on the receiving end of gunfire on a number of occasions. The house takeovers I didn't see. I was psychologically. They didn't fire shots at me, so that didn't scare you as much. But psychologically, it would. When you're coming into the street, they took over the house, and they came and took over that house twice. But when you're standing, somebody's in front of you with an AK, single shot, that's frightening. Or the British soldier standing in front of me, that's frightening. You just, I don't know, your nerves kicked in and you just run for your life. And you just, all you feel is, you're just feeling your body for the red hot blood and hoping it's not. And you keep imagining, I'm still on my feet, I must be alive. That's just frightening. Like, it's really, really frightening. Mental strong or not, it's fucking frightening.
I'm going to say many. I'm not saying you're this, but many would say that in order to be kind of okay with that sort of thing and be able to brush it off like you do, and also to be able to not be overcome with guilt and become a nervous wreck over things you might have done, that someone who can kind of hold their nerve through that, it could be indicative of like being a psychopath, being someone who lacks empathy and who.
No, I don't think you can tie that in with what my life contained of at the time. So my life at the time, that was part of it. People coming at you with guns, people throwing a bomb at your house, people throwing a bomb at your house. You become stronger to all these things. And then on top of that, you're being harassed on a daily basis by the security forces, stopped and searched every day, multiple times. Then on top of that, you're being arrested under the Prevention of Terrorism Act. You're taken away to Castlereagh. You're held for 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, or 7 days. That's all mental torture. In Castlereagh, when you're doing 7 days, or even any days, it's one of the loneliest places in the world that you could be. And every minute seems like an hour. And that's where they think they've got you. And that's why they introduced the 7-day detention to break you. Because they know people would be vulnerable. Because there's nobody to hold your hand in there. Your mama, your daddy, your wife, your brother, your sister, or your comrade, or your leader. You're in there on your fucking own. So you got to survive on your own. And you're up against 2 detectives. And they're not going to nail you to the table. But they're going to verbally abuse you. But if you want to put pen to paper, it's up to your fucking self. And I would rather fucking laugh at them and get out after 7 days. Or if you have evidence, produce it and fucking charge me. Which you could never do. But that was the aspect of my life, and that made me, that strength toughened me into the person that I was, because I had coming from all levels, from the Republicans, from the security forces. I mean, I had to contend with all that, and it wasn't easy. It wasn't fucking easy. And most people say, as I believe, if they went through a fraction of what I went through, their fucking heads would have went, because that was mental torture. Every aspect of it.
Did you, when you look back on it, in hindsight, did you have any like coping mechanisms that you like a coping mechanism? Be it
did it affect me?
I'm not saying you did self-medicate, but some people self-medicate. Some people have.
No. It's just like, I don't know. I kind of asked myself. I've questioned myself and said, like, why are you not feared? It must have been the mental strength, but it did not fear me. See, the way I always looked at it, why worry yourself sick over something but you can't see coming? In life, what will happen will happen. What's going to happen will happen to you. It could be a bomb, be it a bullet, be it a slate coming off the roof, be it hit with a bus, be it a road accident. It's going to happen. So don't beat yourself up worrying about it. When it's going to happen or how's it going to happen? If it's going to happen, it'll happen. And one day, we're all promised one thing, and that's death. So did it fear me? No. Did I know that I would have been killed? I believe that one day they'll get me. But the good thing about it was I didn't know what day. So that took the fear away. I expected that these cunts will get me one of these days. But I didn't know I'm getting shot there on Thursday. So that's where it didn't frighten me within, because it was just going to be sporadic and you're probably not going to see it coming. So I think that kind of made me sort of way not be frightened the way I think most people should be frightened, because there was a lot of gun attacks on my life. A lot. I trust people to a certain degree and to a certain level. And I had the utmost respect and trust for the men that I work with in C-company. All I could say, they were all brave warriors, and someone was with us today, someone weren't with us today, sadly. But I don't know. I can't get into their heads. I think probably I would guess that they're just because to me they were soldiers, they were brave soldiers, they were elite of soldiers, they were like the SAS. I believe that these boys were like the SAS, the British Army, and I believe they were mentally strong, physically strong, and above all, they were dedicated to their organisation. Dedicated. How did they cope with it after? I don't know. I've never sat down and asked them.
Speaking
And
of
I think they would just see it as that's like the way the British Army was. It's something that you have to do. If you can't do it, if you couldn't do it or couldn't live with it, I don't think they would engage in the first place because they're not stupid people. They were smart people they were all over 21 and they never questioned orders that they give, and they were all volunteers. They were all volunteers.
you mentioned there about like there being like quote unquote like a special forces amongst loyalists like that ye would have been like the
Well,
equivalent of would you would you
without
would you see
yeah,
the likes of the like the South like I would view loosely speaking I would view like the South Armagh and at times the East Tyrone crowd as being
well,
special forces of
but,
the
but,
IRA given
but, yeah,
they're a lot more competent, better trained, involved.
yeah, no doubt, no doubt. But without disrespecting other brigades, Ulster Freedom Fighters who were engaging in operations, without disrespecting them, I always looked at C Company and said that they were what the SAS were and the British Army. C Company was at the UDA, and what I mean by that is they were the most active, the most sophisticated weaponry, and they were just that's what they were, and that's the way I would say that they were. C Company would the UDA was what the British SAS was the British Army, and if you look at statistics, I mean the war they were the most active. I mean,
Active,
again
yes,
without disrespecting other brigade areas, 80% of all UFF operations came from Lower Shankill C Company. That's 80% of all UFF operations in the province came from Lower Shankill C Company. Now, you're talking about 6 brigade areas. 80% of them gun and grenade and bomb and shootings came from Lower Shankill C Company. That's some percentage. So that gives you an insight to how active C Company were. And they just didn't stick to their own areas. They travelled further than they've travelled further afield.
I can't. I'm not having a go at all. I can't say I disagree with like C Company being like a special forces equivalent. I get you. I get you that they're more active. Active is definitely the word, but active doesn't mean elite. I mean like would you have been able to pull off some of these very sophisticated
Well,
stuff
if
like
I
that the
if I
IRA
could take
did at
you,
various
if I could take you,
not
no,
just
no, no,
going
no,
out not just going out and shooting someone. I mean
no, no,
these
no, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking
multifaceted.
about legitimate. If I could take you up the Mourne Mountains with 6 or 10 members of C Company men at the time, no guns, no bombs, no drink, no nothing, just in their country for 24 hours, you would see what I mean. You would see that there's something different about these guys. And I don't mean different in their appearance or their attitude, or I just you would know, but you would have to spend time with these people. In my eyes, some of these people were special people. I mean, really. I mean, it's just it's really even at times I say to myself, these guys are special men. The war, it was just it's the thing would get me with them. It was the dedication. They were overly dedicated. They were really passionate about the organization. They loved it. They loved it, and it was just. But again, some of these people worked. Well, most of them worked, so it wasn't for. I mean, it was just because of what was happening to their country and their community. They felt if I can be part of C Company, who are very active, and I mean, the more the merrier. That's the way they looked at it. And the answer to your question, if I brought you out with 10 Emmons or 6 Emmons and we spent the day together walking up the mountains, hitchhiking or something, you get to the top of the mountain and you sit down and you say, Johnny, I get where you're coming from now. They're different. I don't know. Just in my book anyway, they were different animals, different class.
I see.
Brilliant. Brave.
Um, I was going to say, okay, t talk to me about the we just talked about an attempt on your life in March '93, then in October '93, the month of your birthday actually, there was a a very famous bomb in a fish shop in the Shankill, which was
Yeah,
intended for you.
that was the IRA planted a bomb in the Shankill and killed all them innocent people, and one of the men had planted the bomb. And in a statement, they said that that was for the leadership of the UFF, which was untrue. First and foremost, and then along the lines, my name, they threw my name into it. They never named me in a statement. They said the UFF leadership, who meets up there at certain times on a certain day, which was untrue, because I would have known, and I know from experience, that the UFF don't meet in the UDA headquarters. They don't talk in the UDA headquarters because they know they're under surveillance. They know them officers are being tagged and bugged. So the last place that the UFF would go and have a meeting would be UDA headquarters. So did the IRA know that? Yes, they did. They would have. However, someone within, that's all that I can imagine, someone within wrongly told the IRA that these boys, the UFF meet in here at a certain time, which was nonsense. In fact, I was at the prison at the time of the bomb went off visiting Sammy McCrory, my best mate, in the mayor's prison. So there's no way that UFF would meet in that office. Did I frequent that office a couple of times a week? I was too busy to go into that office. All they done in that office was sat and done crosswords anyway. I had no time for that. I was on the road, on the ground. So there's no way they were getting militant people. In fact, there was people in the office, but when the bomb went off, them people weren't even, they were slightly injured. So had the UFF been sitting in that office having a meeting at the time, planning whatever, even had they did ignite that bomb, I mean, they weren't killing, they were killing innocent people. And they knew by bringing a bomb to the heart of the fucking Shankill, but justified here because there's UDA headquarters, we'll get away with it. But it backfired on them. And it was just a purely innocent sectarian bombing. And that's what we were up against. And that's why people like me was angry. And not just me, everybody. And people like us didn't stand up to them. I mean, they'd have done more of this, and they'd have done more of this until there was none of us fucking left.
At this stage in 1983, I mean, or sorry, 1993, I think you kind of alluded to it earlier, but at this stage you said you were kind of numb almost to a degree to these near misses. It was just kind of another near miss, but it wouldn't like actually keep you awake and stuff, no, at this stage.
To be honest, I was more devastated when I see the devastation, because I came back and we went to the scene of it. And I couldn't believe, even I was shocked that the IRA would do that. I mean, that office had been there for years since the formation of the UDA. Not once was it touched. But then all of a sudden, on a lovely hot Saturday afternoon, they come down and plant the bomb in the fish shop below the headquarters and kill all them innocent people, children. I mean, that was just a bomb in the heart of the Shankill. Because remember, them officers have been there for all them years. There was never a bomb. So if they were off the UDA, the UFF leadership, why did they not come then? Why did they come then and plant the bomb when loyalist paramilitaries as a whole were putting Republicans under pressure and the months leading up to that? So they were under pressure. They couldn't get their Johnny Adairs or their top men again. So what we'll do, we'll just go and rule for the Shankill, which they done. And it backfired on them.
Before we get to your jailings, did you ever engage in drug dealing or extortion or crime to fund C-comp?
No. Anything I'd been to jail for was all military activity.
Oh, I know that. I know that. That's a separate thing.
Directing terrorism, attempted murders of Sinn Féin officers, possession of weapons, membership, stealing policeman's gun, no extortion, no armed robberies on my record, all military operations on behalf of the Ulster freedom fighters. I was acquitted of them, but I was charged with them. But mostly you'll see most UDA men go to jail for extortion or robbing sweet shops. Mine was all military operations.
Did at the time, now we're talking kind of early 90s, did other UDA groups or indeed the UVF engage in drug dealing to fund?
Well, if you're being honest, let's be honest, all paramilitary groups, including Republicans, were engaged in criminal activity. These men didn't go to church on a Sunday. weren't gospel Christian loving people. Some of them were ruthless, dangerous men. So did they do like selling drugs wouldn't be a horrible sin in their eyes, if you know what I mean, compared to some of the things that they have done. But all I can say on that is I don't believe, I know for a fact that each and every one of the paramilitary organisations engaged in one kind of criminal activity, be it extortion, robbery, or selling drugs. Absolutely. If they didn't, they wouldn't have been able to survive. Because to see they run a campaign, it takes money. Weapons don't come cheap. And I mean, organisations like that need to be funded. And they have their own ways and their own rules of making them funds. And would part of it be drug? You just have to look now. Yes, that's all it is, drug dealing. Was some of it going on then? Of course, I believe it would have been. All organisations.
Early 90s, you were creating like a lot of to put a very softly noise in Belfast. IRA badly wanted you gone, or UC really wanted you off the street. Can you talk to us about how it is that you did end up getting jailed? I don't think I'm not having to go, but I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that you kind of bragged your way into.
Well, see, this is it. I was cocky, right? And the cops knew I was cocky. I was trying to humiliate the police because they hated me. They had no love for me. So, and I remember I was getting stopped every day, 10 times, 12 times, 13 times a day, every day. Plus my house was getting searched, raided, racked. Now, so I had no love for the RUC. Love the British Army, but not the RUC. So them cops would have been stopping me in the rain, out of the car out there. So, but I would have been a cocky. I would have talked them right up till as far as legally it could go, and then pulled back. And then I knew, but what I was doing was making a cut out of them and going so far, but then taking a step back, and then things would have happened. And then I'm like, but that's it that we. Well, he didn't actually say that. Oh, but he said it in a roundabout way. I knew what I was doing. I was making a clean out of them. And they were lifting me week in and week out. They couldn't get anything on me. They charged me about on a few. They used a woman supergrass that was thrown out of court. They charged me a few times, but I beat the charges. Right, I was in Castlereagh every other week. I was in Golf Barracks. Right, they could never break me. They could never buy my soul. So what they done, as the chief constable then said, they had to introduce legislation to bring about charges of tracting Tarzan to get this man. And that what they done was they secretly recorded me because they were stopping me every fucking day in life. They secretly recorded me. They tried to goad me into saying things and they pinned everything against me. When I visited the prison and I visited the jail 6 days a week, sometimes they see me doing 3 visits in one day. 2 in the Crumb in the morning and the Maze in the afternoon. So every time I visit, and everybody I'm visiting were paramilitary C-company men or UDA men or UVF men. So they held that against me. What normal person could go visiting people charged with paramilitary offences? And everything like that they were holding against, everything that they think would stick. Pictures of UFF in the house, which weren't illegal. Anything, UDA badges, anything at all. So they just grabbed as much stuff together as possible. And that they had this one charge, hoping we'll test it there. And that's the only way they got me. And that's the only way that they stopped the rat. Because to be honest, I'm not blowing my own trumpet. I run rings around the place for a long time. I fucking did. I did.
Okay, so you...
Did they have their successes against us? Some. Did we have more successes? Yes. Did that branch hated me? The branch hated me. But I can remember a couple coming into Castlereagh and shouting and bawling, and I'm saying about it comes from the government, the Secretary of State, the Chief Constable, the Chief Superintendent, right down to the Provisional Commander, right onto my fucking doorstep, and you're coming into my area, fucking stay out of it. I get my bollocks chewed off. So obviously, the fact that what we were doing, because they weren't getting results, people had the answer to it. And that was one, I remember one particular senior cop coming in and yelling and bawling, you stay out of my fucking area. He says, because they weren't getting successes. We were getting in and getting out, and they weren't coming up with any, not with arrested 3 men or 2 men or found us. And obviously they got their colours felt. And I get it. It's like a domino effect. how are these people getting off with this? Who's in charge of that area? So it comes down the chain, and he had to fucking suffer. So he was taking it out in me in Castlereagh. But that's the effect I had on them. But they had successes too. But we had more successes than they did.
Okay, so yeah, you were jailed for 15 years. We'll talk about your prison in a second. Can you talk to me about, I meant to ask you earlier, you said there was like throughout your career, if you will, there was several attempts to recruit you as an informant. Can you talk to me about how this kind of meeting would go and what they try to use and the tactics?
The most serious attempt was when they came in with a briefcase full of money.
Sorry, this is special branch we're talking about.
That was the chief constable, who I didn't know who it was at the time. It was Ronnie Flanagan, who was then head of the special branch, right? But then he went on to become head of the RUC. Can you remember him? No?
So the name rings a bell, yeah.
Well, anyway, he was head of special branch. I didn't know him. So they had me in for 7 days. Special branch, trying to work on me, blah, blah, blah. Kept saying the boss was coming in, blah. 5th day, 6th day came the boss, introduced himself. I didn't know who he was. Suitcase between his 2 legs. Right, Johnny, then these men, blah, 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 what you're doing out there, blah. Just all the usual nonsense. Then he put the suitcase on the table. He said, you know what's in that? Before he went there, I said, I assume it's money. He says, and it's your money. No, there was £50,000 in it. Now, that was a lot of money then. And I remember him. He turned around and he said this to me. He said, that suitcase only comes out about 3 times a year. And he named 3 names, 1 Republican and 2 Loyalists from West Belfast. He said, that suitcase only comes out about 3 times a year. And he mentioned the people and he mentioned the 3 names. He says, now that's yours. And went on and on. I grabbed it. They all had it. It was £1,000 bundles. And most of it was all brand new notes. And about 15 grand was used notes. He said, that's yours. So it goes on and on and on and on. Pushed me back to my cell, back out again. So they realised that the money never done nothing. Money was never my god, you see. So they were assuming UDA leaders love the fucking money. So, but that really done nothing fucking for it there. So the next thing, what they done, they fly past, they said, oh, what else does he do? Oh, he likes the women. So see, when they got me back again, the next interview was the woman in. So they must have had their wee briefing and went, that didn't work there. No, forget about the money. That's not working with him. He fucking likes the women. So I was interviewing him, and there was a pretty woman, a really nice looking woman. And not dressed in press, pair of jeans and a sweatshirt. And she looked like a pretty woman from the Shankill. And I panicked. Momentarily, I thought she was in to pick me out for something. And then I realised it wasn't her. So anyway, I came in. She gave me all. She's a nice looking girl. She started talking about having me under surveillance, following me here, following me there, even telling me some of the conversations I had to prove that she was on my tail. And then she gave me a fag and all, and then she says, look, Johnny, I've pictures of you everywhere. She says, I'm on your case 24/7. She says, fuck you RUC special branch, fuck you UFF. She says, I would want to get it off for you, Johnny. Can we meet up? I said, go fuck yourself. So after that, they released me, and they realised where I was going wrong. 2 days later, the bastards arrested me again, Prevention Terrorism Act. Only this time they were different. It was cheeky. He says, first of all, they were nice. He said, Johnny, we blundered last week. We offered you £50,000. He says, we blundered. He says, you name your price. And I don't have a price. But in between that, they'd done something on the outside, hoping that I would get the blame of it, but it didn't work. So they released me. But before they released me, they told me a story about informers, and they told me what they were going to do with a Provisional IRA informer to tell his leader all about me. And to be honest, everything they told me, I laughed at it. I didn't think the police would do that. See, when I go to jail, when I go to Castlereagh, a couple of weeks later, all what he told me happened. The House-takeover, Edenbrook School, where I dropped my kids at school, UDA headquarters, they were the places the IRA tried to get me. They told me that exactly. They said, we'll tell them not to put a bomb onto your car because you can check it. We'll tell them not to try and smash through your door because it's solid. He said, we'll tell them to take over a house. The IRA never took over houses. But after they told me that, informed me that, twice they took over the same house. Once they went to Edenbrook School to drop me off. Because I said to your branch, I don't have a fucking routine. Your man just clicked his finger. He says, Edenbrook School, UDA headquarters. That was 2 of the places they tried to get me. Oh, they set me up. That's collusion. But I can't prove that. And when I was getting out, he turned around and said, hey, you're getting released. He said, I see. Well, because he realised I wasn't going to work for them. He says, now, see all what we've said to you because of threatening my life. He says, you go out there and get all the cameras you want and even get Ian Paisley. He says, who do you think he's going to believe? He says, the dedicated RUC men like us are murdering like you. They did. They set me up. They fucking, because that wasn't a coincidence. We'll tell them not to put a bomb under your car. We'll tell them not to smash into your door. We'll tell them to take over a house facing you. That never happened. A few weeks after that, that happened.
Did anyone other than RUC try to recruit you as being a tout?
Just the RUC. As special plans, they hated me. Hated me. They would have wanted me. But they had, look, listen, they wouldn't, sadly, loyalism, leadership of the UDA is infested with informants. That's a fact. That's what hurts me. But they never had their successes down where I was in the Lower Shankill C-comp because I kept it tight. That's why, I mean, you look at all them C-company operations, there's not too many, there's none of them, in fact, that's under investigation by John Stevens. And he investigated the ones where the touts were all at their work up to their eyeballs. You look at all C-companies operations, not one of them is subject to investigation. You know why? Because there was no high-level touts within C-company. Don't get me wrong. Is your £20 a week touts, sir? Probably. But if C-company unearthed one, they would have dealt with them or them.
Right. I was going to say...
That's the difference. Whereas nowadays, it seems to be acceptable. Why is it acceptable? Because lots of the leadership are all at it. So they're not going to turn down the road.
You didn't have like a nothing squad like the IRA did, where it was dedicated, a unit dedicated to. Would you have just done it within your own unit?
I believe in my understanding that would have been C-company's priority was security and the security of the men for not to be infiltrated. And I believe that there would have been all sorts of plots, plans, and traps set. Even to some good operators, and that's why they were so successful, because things would have happened. And I don't we think a ploy of smoking, what you call smoking people out. That's what I call it. And I can remember a person who was suspected, right? So what I done, me and another person, we had let's smoke this out. He was a suspect. So an operation happened, but I made sure the person that I was going to name to this other man, who I suspected, had an alibi and had nothing to do with this operation. So we told this man who we suspected that such and such had carried out this operation. Now, and I said, sit back and for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or 5 weeks, if he's at his work, your man will be lifted. And lo and behold, this man, who wasn't known, but we made sure that he would have had an alibi for what he would have got arrested for. About 4 weeks later, one cold winter's morning, this guy was arrested for the operation. So it came right back to that guy, because this guy didn't do the operation. But when he did the Castlereagh, he was questioned about the specifics of it, which he knew all about. But we had turned to this man who we suspected, and that's the way we would have worked. It was always my priority to try and unearth informants, because they were the biggest threat to us, not the IRA. We knew the IRA was what they were doing to our people, but we didn't know what our own people and our own ranks was doing. That was the biggest. That was a sin. That was the biggest sin, not the IRA.
What fate did that person eventually meet?
What?
The guy who you've kind of figured out.
I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened to him.
I see.
But surely, informers, you know what happened to informers in South Armagh, which again, fair play to them. That's what they deserve. Because if a man wants to inform on his own rank and file, his own Ulster men, his own comrades, why the f does he not go and join the RUC at the start instead of the UDA? Why come into the ranks and send his fucking comrades to jail? Men who's got wives, men who's got mummies and daddies and fucking sons and daughters. A tout's the biggest fucking rat you could ever fucking meet. And they need to exterminate it. And I agree with it. All fucking touts to exterminate it. A slow and agonizing death. because what they're doing, how can you do that with dedicated men? It's risking their freedom to go out and fight for a fucking organisation. The bastards at the top of it, even some of these cunts at the top, are fucking crossing these wee men in. That's I get it. I get the thing about touts. I fucking hate them. I hate them.
Do you get or did you get kind of through the course of your life kind of like trust issues given that so many were you know, people around you might have suspected them, and even the fact, I mean, there was a lady
No, yeah, yes, I get where you're coming from, and I was wise enough, but you learn.
she betrayed you by talking to.
No, you would trust. My trust came, which was wrong. I would have trusted a man who I knew had engaged heavily in military activity. So I wouldn't even have considered him a suspect until when the Good Friday Agreement came, the police ombudsman was established, Nola Alone, and she established that there was informers who were killers, who some of them were multiple killers. You had Scapa Teacher, who was a top fucking head of the nothing squad, but still he was working. So I always believed that if you're a very, very active member who was doing the business, you wouldn't be allowed to work for a special branch. But I got that one wrong, because it's since been identified that people who were involved in that and have been indeed working for the special branch.
Not even just taking.
At that time, I learned by that. I put a trust a man who I believed he's good. He wouldn't trust him. He wouldn't be allowed to work.
Yeah, not only killing people like IRA men, but there was there was plenty of people who were working as agents. Not I don't mean with you. I'm talking about like Mark Haddock, for example. I mean he carried
That's
out.
what I mean. But I mean, I didn't think
attacks.
I didn't believe that people like that would be allowed to work for the RUC special branch. So I would have, people like that wouldn't have crossed my mind of being dodgy or working for the police, because he's done the business. So not once, maybe a couple of times. So I would have trusted someone like that, but I got that wrong. And it was only through Nola Alone who exposed people like Haddock and Scrabby Scapa Teacher, who were serial fucking top fucking hitmen, but yet of all they were fucking up their eyes with fucking intelligence.
Yeah. Can I do you mind if I go?
Yes, it was always priority. It was always priority in my life, because we were so active, that the security of them men and them volunteers was first. Sure. So that meant looking over your shoulder at somebody beside you and questioning. Yes, we did, and I think that's why we had a good success, because I kept them on their toes like that.
So right, you got landed in jail. Your sentence was for 15 years. You obviously didn't do it due to Good Friday. Can you describe your years in jail? In fairness, like you're obviously without your freedom, but I think he had like an experience that many didn't. You know,
the first couple of days in jail was again chaos. That was the time we took over the prison, and there was a rooftop protest. I was only 2 days into the jail at the time, and then it worked out in our favour. We got segregation, although we got a hiding by the fucking screws for doing so. And then we got moved to the maze. It was great, different environment. Screws were different people. We could wear whatever we wanted, or jewellery or watches. Things was great. All the comrades were on the same wings together. It was amazing. It was great. And then as the weeks flew in, and the sad news was Ray Smallwood, a gentleman, shot dead by the Provisional IRA. Then, weeks after that, Joe Brody and Mary Elder, shot dead by the IRA. Again, they were times that were hard. And I'll tell you why they were hard, because the IRA, coming in there so close to a peace talks and peace agreement, had taken out one political man and 2 members of the UDA, taking them out. And again, the frustration and anger that came with that, because we were locked in jail. We were defenseless. Not only me, but the men around me were defenseless to respond to what the IRA had done to these, because that was an attack on our organisation, an attacking 3 good men. But again, sadly, the frustration within me and within my comrades, but there was no response to that. There was no response from our organisation. And my men and myself, we angered, because look at the things that we were doing, and there's 3 good men shot fucking dead, and there's no response from the remainder of the organisation that's out there. So that was a hard time. If you're talking about a hard time in jail, it was them months, them few weeks when that had happened to the likes of Joe and Ray Smallwood and Ray Elder. That was tough times for the organisation on the outside. Was just fucking, they were monkeys, that's all the more, and there's no fucking interest. They were glad people like me were locked up. But surely these men would turn in their fucking grave. Just three good men who were slaughtered by the IRA, and their fucking comrades and colleagues never done all about it. That hurt me. That hurt a lot of people in the jail at the time.
Is it true you had like drugs and parties and stuff in there at various times?
That's what happened. That was the norm in the maze. Yep, drink, drugs, and everything else. Because all their wee comrades, I mean, they'd give up their freedom. They'd sacrifice their freedom for the Ulster freedom fighters, the UDA. They had came away from their wives, their mommies, their daddies, their brothers, their sisters, their happy families. Their families were destroyed to a certain extent. But so we just gathered together. There was two wings of us, and we just lived like a family. What was left on the outside, we're gaining it on the inside. And you know what? Your mommy and your daddy and your wife and your kids can come up a couple of times a week and see you, because it's not the end of the world. So we tried to make it as best as possible. And see if a mom wanted a spliff, good fucking luck, tell you. Go ahead. You fucking fought the war out there. You were right up to your fucking knees. So if you're doing fucking 20 years now, you want a wee joint, fucking take it. It's not going to ruin the world, is it? So I didn't mind. Because these were the men that fought for the organisation. These were the men that brought the fucking forced the IRA to the negotiating table with their actions. And it was somebody wanting to deprive them of a fucking joint. I wasn't for doing that.
If it came to it, and if you needed to go on hunger strike and maybe see it through at some stage, do you think you'd have been up for it?
Well, I'm going to be brutally honest with you there. I'm dedicated still to this day, right? And I've done and have done anything and everything for that organisation. However, I knew I would have lost my life, or I believed I would have lost my life. But see if someone would have came to me and said, "Oh, Johnny, you're dedicated, right? Blah blah blah. Will you starve yourself to death for this organisation?" I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have the courage that them 10 hunger strikers done. Do you know why? Because I accepted that the IRA would get me, but I didn't know when. So you can live with that. That's an element of surprise. But these hunger strikers put their hand up from 1 to 10, from Bobby Sands right up to the last one, put their hand up and volunteered to die for a political cause. And the death was staring them in the face for 63 days, 65 days, or whatever the case might be. Each and every fucking day for 60 odd days, them men knew they were dying. See if I'd get shot, one of them bullets would hit me in the head, I was out of it. Go on. These men were stirring death for 63 fucking days. Johnny, would you do it? No, I wouldn't. You do it. Would you do it? I don't think you get too fucking many UDA leadership fucking doing it. I, for one, hand on my heart, I wouldn't have done it. Grudgingly respect them 10 hunger strikers, because you've no taking away from them. They were courageous men for what they've done. I wouldn't have fucking heart to do that with the courage.
Really? That's interesting. That's interesting that you'd have like an admiration for that.
Oh, I grudgingly respect them, or my enemy. But for a man to do that for political cause, and you got to remember, we benefited out of their deaths too. Do you understand? Like, we benefited, we benefited out of that too. That wasn't just the IRA got all that. It was just we got the same as everybody else, but they fought for it and they died for it. So you'd be a fool if you couldn't grudgingly respect them because they were fucking the enemies. They were IRA and INLA, but no, they were fucking dedicated warriors, soldiers. And remember, 63 days, stern death in your face. Your wee mama and your daddy coming up and pleading with you. Come off it, son, I love you. No, ma, the Republican movement's more important. These political concessions are more important. That's fucking soldiers on the highest level. I couldn't do it.
You in 1981, like when the hunger strikes were going and you were young, did you have that same attitude then, or was it just in hindsight?
No, see, that in 1981, the time of the hunger strikers, the Belfast was ablaze. That's the violence was at its highest, and the IRA was on a par at that time, shooting and bombing and killing. And the street violence was again back to the way it was in the early 70s. That was dangerous times, the times of the hunger strikes. It really was. And frightening times for Protestants.
Would you have, putting that aside, would you have this kind of begrudging respect and maybe to a yeah, it could be begrudging respect for that?
Then, I'll be brutally honest, then no, because we were against it, because the hunger strikers equal the violence after every death, equal fucking violence, and that violence continued and continued and continued. So we had a hatred for everything Republicans. That included the hunger strikers at the time. But because of the fear and the violence that they were orchestrating on the streets, we as Protestant loyalists had a hatred for them, a burning hatred for them. I've got all of them, Catholics, nationalists, Republicans, the whole lot, hunger strikers and all. But when the dust settles and you realise what they've done and how far they went to achieve what they achieved, me personally, I would grudgingly respect them.
I see.
I wouldn't do. You asked the question, would I do it? I'm sure I wouldn't.
Interesting. Obviously, when you went into prison, you didn't know that you thought you were going to do your full term. You didn't know that there would be this thing called the Good Friday Agreement that would let everyone out.
Yes, I was part of it before that. I was part of this talks. Not well. I don't mean part of the talks.
I want to ask you, like,
on the build up to it. See the Good Friday Agreement. See, months and years prior to that, we were meeting with Catholic community leaders, priests. I mean, all people who we'd never met with before. We, as the Inner Council, I was a member of the Inner Council at the time, so we met these type of people. So behind the scenes, we were having meetings on the build-up till where it eventually came. So I would have been a part. I would have attended lots of meeting all sorts of different people from all different aspects of life and religions.
But what I'm saying is, when you went into prison, you didn't know that at the end of the decade, you'd all get released. You thought you were doing your full thing. At what stage during your prison time did you kind of did you realize, oh shit, I won't need to, I'm not going to need to do this 15 years. I can get out like everyone else.
No. See, at the start, I knew, because I was just one of the, I hadn't been in the prison for a long time, and everybody knew if there was to be a peace agreement and a settlement, prisoners would be addressed. Now, I think most prisoners thought that they were getting out overnight. That did affect a lot of prisoners, because people used to joke and laugh and say they're on the peace bus, let me out bus. But I mean, it wasn't like that. So that made it lots of the prisoners' time more and more harder, because they were expected to get out tomorrow. And I realised that even if it does come to address the prisoners, Johnny, you'll be one of the last, because you're only in. And most of my time then was taken up, because we would have met our political party from the outside. They were up the jail every week, keeping us informed. Everything that went on in the meetings, it was being relayed back to us. So my time in the prison was took up with what was going on the outside and the talks. So we were kept busy. And then on top of that, you're trying to run two wings and keep everybody happy and keep everybody on the same level, because everybody wanted out. And I knew that it would come, but the peace has to come first. And it did come, and we're delighted that most people got out. And
I see.
Because most of my men, we were all in. There was nobody in there for robbing sweet shops or anything like that, or extortion. It was all double figures, big figures, 20 years, 22 years, right down. I think the least prisoner I had was one man who was in for 9 years for having a grenade. Okay. So there's no extortionists or sweet shop robbers there. They're all soldiers.
Did when you went into prison, Winky Dodds, did he replace you? He replaced your position.
Yeah. He was one of my best friends. Still to this day, in my heart, he would be my best friend. But sadly, he's not in the best of health now. But he was just a love big Winky, and he's good living now. So I'm glad he's a Christian, and I'm glad he's in safe hands whatever happens to him. But yeah, Winky was I would consider Winky to be one of my best friends. I'd known him for a long time, and I've worked with him for a long time, and me and him worked together, and I trust him with my life.
Okay, so take me to what date? Do you remember the date you actually got out of prison?
I don't know. I don't even know what dates I got out. I don't even know when I went down. I knew it was the early 90s. I got out in the late 90s. But you see me, well, I got 16 years, and you do half of that. But during the talks, they brought 3/3 in, knowing they were never going to have to use it. But see, out of the 16 years I done, because I was recalled twice, I spent almost just near 12 years in jail out of a 16-year sentence. So I didn't benefit out of the Good Friday Agreement. I done worse out of it. Because even without the Good Friday Agreement, I'd have been out in 8 years. But I've spent almost 12 years because they revoked my license twice. The release was good. And I was the only prisoner that when I signed the papers to get out, you sign papers and then they let you out about a week later. But I signed my papers, and the next thing came on the news that the Secretary of State, who was Mo Molan then, had blocked my early release. And I was the only prisoner that happened to. However, I was sweating for a few weeks. This is the only prisoner. Obviously, somebody who didn't want me out, who was a trusted agent, had told the MI5 and Special Branch that I was going to wreck the peace, which was a load of bollocks because I supported it. But this man or men were trusted for them to make a Secretary of State aware that I was going to do something in the peace process. So don't let him out. So after a couple of weeks, she reversed her decision and I got out. And then when I did get out, I was the first prisoner to be recalled from early release.
I'm reading I mean, you got convicted in September 95 and were out in like April 99. But that's nowhere near the amount of time
No. I was in over 7 years before I got out on a Good Friday Agreement. So I must have went down in 1990, early 90, or no, I don't know, the 90s, 90 what, 3, I got out in 98.
I'm reading. I mean, you were convicted in convicted in September
I
95.
was remanded, don't forget, for over a year.
Okay, but you were in there anyway.
I was over 7 years. Then I got released on the Good Friday Agreement, and then I was recalled not once but twice.
Okay, so yeah, you're out from your first one. Can you talk to us about this loyalist feud that would land you back? I guess back there, and then eventually having to leave this home that you love.
Well, the Loyalist Feud resulted in a day of culture with the UDA, with 10,000 UDA men who marched up the Shankill peacefully. And
How long you out of prison at this stage?
I don't know, a couple of weeks, a couple of months, I'm not sure. A day of culture was organised, and 10,000 UDA men from throughout the province in Scotland and England and further afield attended and walked up the Shankill peacefully. And there was a band, because lots of bands were invited to it, but there was a band from Antrim, and apparently one of the bands was displaying an LVF, a flag with LVF regalia on it. And when they passed the Rax bar, a few drunks attacked the individual and the band, which subsequently resulted in the 10,000 UDA men turning and having a go at the Rax, which subsequently turned on what ended up on guns getting taken out and shots being fired and people being shot, and it went on for that. And I was arrested the next day or 2 days later, taken to prison, had my license revoked, and then it was wrong. There was no need for it. It was a couple of thugs that attacked that band. They not only did they attack that band, they attacked the UDA parade. If they had a problem with that guy carrying an LVF regalia or even a tricolor, they could have waited until after the parade. There's channels, there's provost marshals, there's brigade staffs. They could have went and said, look, we're not satisfied with that tricolor or that LVF bondage. Is there can we get this sorted out? You don't run in the middle of 10,000 fucking UDA men and fucking attack one of them. Do you know the rest is fucking history? So go to the fucking thug that run into them ranks and fucking up that flag. He's lying in jail now. The cunt. I want to know how he got so little fucking time. Fucking joke.
Like how was it? How was it that you came to be run out? This was in a kind of mid to later August, around the 20th.
When I got out?
No. When you got like ran out of Belfast. The
Oh
night.
no, see, I didn't see. No, I didn't get run out of Belfast. Right, during the feud had just kicked off, and I was driving up with Shankill. Got arrested. A SWAT team. They took me to the army barracks, Gerwood, handcuffed me, run me into a big Wessex helicopter, and flew me to McGabry prison. They locked me in McGabry prison, isolated me for 24 months, Then 2 days before my release, they came in, middle of the night, 5 o'clock in the morning, took me out, took me under the cover of darkness to Aldergrove Airport, threw me in a cell, put a big fucking wetsuit on me, and then put me out, put me in a helicopter and flew me across the Irish Sea to Manchester. I wasn't run out of Belfast. I was in prison. And when I got through to Belfast, when I got through to Manchester, they brought me to the police station. They read me the Red Act. Do not go near Belfast. Do not go near Company C. I said, right, no problem, officer. So the very next day, I was in Belfast and I was at one of the fucking scumbag fucking traitors' doors, rapping it on my own like a man, offering them out, and the shady bastard wouldn't come out. And I brought a camera with me to catch it in camera. He looked through his top, moved his top curtains. I said, come on, I'm on my own. He wouldn't come out. Typical card. But I knew I couldn't hang about there for so long. 10 minutes would be the most. Because I knew they lift the phone and they get all the rats out. And that's how they win. They'll get cards, they'll come, they'll attack you, they'll attack your family. Or there'll be 2 or 3 carloads of them. But I knew when I was going to that man's door, man to man come out, because I knew I would have beat the fuck out of him. Or any one of them, 1-to-1, because they're all cardly bastards. But you can't beat fucking 8 men or 12 men on 3 cards. So he was humiliated. And then I went back. And I did say when I was getting out, I was going to come to these people and I was going to target them one at a time, looking for answers. Because legally I had to watch what I was saying, because I was still in jail. And then he was the first door. He was the instigator. I went to his door on my own with a cameraman to catch it. The cardly bastard wouldn't come down.
And you can't, you're not able to name who this person was,
Jim Spence. Yep. Jim Spence. I'm sure you know who Jim Spence is.
Yeah, no, I'm reading.
The Crown, the Golden Egg.
Yeah, you had to leave Belfast. Did Skelly, one of your best friends, did he leave at around the same time?
No, Skelly was he got out of jail before me, so he lived in Scotland. His partner came from Scotland, so he moved to Scotland. Yep, and he settled here in Scotland. And Skelly was also in the jail. He was in for 18 years, but he got out prior to me because he was in a few years before me. But he had already settled in Scotland.
When you two would speak or meet up, when all this is kind of in the rear view mirror and it's all said and done, do you talk about like the old days and reminisce, even if it's like not fond memories, just did you?
That's all we done every day. Skelly was the best laugh you could ever meet, and anybody will tell you that. He was brilliant, and he just bounced off me, and I bounced off him. I was in his company when I just came here to start every day in life. We had such a ball together. We've done lots of things together. And then a lot of years, I would have spoken to him 5 times a day, every day. I would have seen him maybe twice a week. Skelly, I love Skelly. I love most of my mates, but Big Skelly, there was just, that's different. He was the real deal. He was a brilliant guy. Outside of what he was, I mean, he was dragged into that conflict back home like most of us. See, outside that conflict, Skelly was one of the nicest people that you could ever meet. And I'm sure anybody that's met him will tell you that. Although he's this big striking figure who people would think he's mad, he's a C-company operator. Yes, he was. But that didn't make him a bad person. He was one of the nicest people that you could ever meet in your life. And I loved him, and I loved him from a young age. I mean, me and Skelly, we've done everything together. We've done our first operation together. I can remember that. We almost died together. I remember that. We went to prison together. We've done everything together, me and Skelly. And I could go into Castlereagh and I could go sit for 7 days and I could know that man's never going to fucking break. I know that. I know that in my heart. And you're saying, and I'm the first one that says, never say that, because you don't know who wouldn't fucking who's done it. So you get people going, I know for a fact he's done a tout. Nobody fucking knows for a fact that anybody's a tout. But I know that Skelly would never take a 30 pieces of silver. No, he was brilliant. And he's a big forward in my life when he's gone now. But we had the best of times all of our life. Most of it was crazy. Most of it was mad. Lots of it was in jail. But we had good fucking times. Doing bad things, we had good times. Even over here, we had the best of times. All over England, all over Europe. Skelly's just a brilliant guy, and just a sad loss.
Do you find it kind of paradoxical that I mean, not just Skelly, but other men who would be I mean, when the time comes to it, extremely cold-blooded killers, but also on the other side of the coin, fellas that you could have like the best laugh with and they're the best crack. Do you ever find that strange? This kind of like two extreme
But
sides of people like that.
see, I get where you're coming from. See, if you believe in what you're doing on, it shouldn't affect you. I see what we were doing. The way I'd explain this, we were doing what the British Army was getting paid to do by the government in Iraq and Afghanistan. They were getting paid to do that legitimately. We were doing that illegally. So if a British soldier can do what he was doing in battle and it not affect him because he justifies it, surely most of the volunteers could justify what they were doing as right. And I don't see, or I've never heard there's been a problem where something's happened, they can't live with it or whatever. But surely there is cases where people can't live with it and have took their own life. But that's
Just
up to the individual.
just sticking with Skelly, like were there ever times when okay, I get that the battle that you were fighting
Yeah.
and the overall fight that you were fighting was something you very much believe in, but within that there can be mistakes, there can be things that you thought were right at the time, like but
No,
now
I get what you're coming from. I know where you're getting from. I think just
did he
people,
ever did he
does
ever
it hunt people? Does
did
it
he
hunt
ever
people
express some
when they
type
turn to
of
drink and drugs? Probably you're right. And there has been cases where I know where people has taken their own life. And why have they done it? Because they have taken lives themselves. And then what you're saying is when they're on their own, when they're lonely, when they have time to think about what they've done, some people in the past, back home, both sides, Republican and Loyalist, have taken their own life and have taken their own life as a result of their actions that they carried out themselves. Some of them may have been to prison and paid their debt to society, but still couldn't live with it and took their own lives.
did
So I get where you're coming from.
he
That's what you
ever
come on to the post-traumatic stress. So
did he ever say to you, do you ever talk about individual ones and think, oh, fuck, I wish I hadn't done that one, or that one really didn't help our cause, or that one wasn't, in hindsight, that wasn't part of this fight that we believed in. Did you ever have conversations like that?
oh no, nobody's ever came and said, I think that was wrong or mistaken identity. I don't know. No, nobody's ever came to me and does it haunt people? I don't know. I can't get into people's heads, but nobody's ever came to me and made it clear that this is wrong or I can't do this anymore. In fact, I'm not saying name. There was one guy came to me, a very, very top activist, and they had him in for 7 days. And he came out and he came to me and he explained to me, he said, look, I want to take a back seat. I don't want to. I said, no, I respected him. I said, fair play, they've just run you for 7 days there, fucking verbally tortured you and fucking said everything to you. Now, this wee mom was as dedicated as they come. Now, I gave him a big hug and told him how brave he was for even to come to me and explain that because he just wanted. I said, right, I mean, where you go, I mean, the utmost respect for you, right? 2 weeks later, he turned up for ASU again. He just couldn't get away from it. But he thought that after the 7 days and time to think, look, I want to take a back seat. He took a back seat for 2 weeks, then he was in the thick of it again. That's just the way they were battle hardened, them boys. They were just special in my eyes. They were the worst special people. The war.
Whether you would care much what ex-IRA or ex-Republican paramilitaries think of you, whether you care about that or not, put that aside. Do you think do you think that they would view you as being like a similar class of paramilitary as them, as in someone who was just who was basically doing the equivalent of what they were doing on the other side? Do you think they have,
I think
do you
first
think
and
they have
foremost,
kind of
yeah,
a grudging respect for
yeah,
you?
yeah. First, yes, first and foremost, they would hate me because of the damage I was doing on the Lemons. Secondly, I think they would grudgingly respect me because I think that they know that he's on the orange side, we're on the green side. He's fighting a different battle. So I think they would get that. They'll hate me, despise me. I'm the devil, tell them. But I think seasoned IRA men would grudgingly respect what I was doing. And I think they would have the sense to realise that guy was nothing personal. It was strictly business there. You mean that's what they're doing? It's not because I'm this one or you call me friend or you call me this. It's because we're Republicans. We're doing this, and he's trying to fight us back. So I think IRA would some of them anyway, would grudgingly respect me. I know they would fucking hate me first and foremost. They've tried to kill me enough times. Fuck's sake, to prove that.
Do you care about how like the general public of Belfast or the Shankill or the North do you really deep down care about how they view you and how you view their legacy, or is it something
Absolutely not. I'll tell you, see me, see at the time when I was back, when the war was on, I was a hero. Every cunt loved me. I was a hero. I was a devil to Republicans and Catholics. But you see, when the peace came along, and then there was no common enemy, then the jealousies kicked in. And that I was a victim of my own success. That created, see, if you're good at something, no matter what it is in this world, that creates jealousy. Because the man below you or the man in the next fucking brigade, they want to be you, but they don't have your balls. They don't want to go through what you went through. So that creates, see anybody backstab me, they're one of two people: informers or jealous bastards. Simple as that. Because I never done fucking any harm. All I done was good for that organisation. And the real people and the real men know that. But the people that turned to me, and it was orchestrated, I believe, from the powers that be, it was the informers, and they used the informers at the top to brainwash the fucking men, right down to the wanks, to fucking scare them to fucking turn against me. And them men didn't turn against me. They're scared of the leadership. Because you see, when you've rank over there, that's a powerful thing. Sadly, within the leadership level, lots of these leaders have been are double. They're in the organisation, but they're on the payroll, and that's powerful. The rank and file. He's a brigadier. Oh, he's on brigade staff. That scares them. Just that in itself. But it was the jealous people and the informers. They were the ones that turned on me. It's very same men at the time who loved me, but when the time was right, when the bigwigs said we need to get rid of him and we need you to help us, that's when the touts who had worked took the branch over me. There's no doubt about that. But listen, I'm happy. I'm out of it. I'm away from that type of people. I don't need to be surrounded with them type of people anymore. I don't need to look over my shoulder. I don't need to look at someone in my eyes and say, "Do I trust him?" I trust myself. I trust whoever I need to trust. But it's not like the way it was now, where who the fuck's he? What's he doing? Who's working here? I mean, you know all these cunts around you, and fuck's sake, you just have to read. I'm not coming out of my mouth. You've read it all yourself about these people that's been named and shamed, but they're still there.
do you hope it would be an awful shame if not, but like, do you hope that there will sometime in the future come a day when, even if you don't go living on the Shankill or anything, that you would just literally walk up and down
Oh, no, 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 no.
streets that you grew up in as a boy and you became a man?
Yes, no, but even if there was, I wouldn't want it because listen, life's too short. I'm 61 years of age, right? I've had a colourful life. A big part of that was spent in jail. The other part of that was a dangerous, fucking dangerous life. Now, I found myself in the last 20 years since I've been in Scotland living a normal life, doing the normal things that I do that I couldn't do back home. I love my life now. I live here with my 13-year-old boy. I never get into trouble. I have no police harassment. I have no gunmen coming after to shoot me. I have no traitors setting me up. I have no agent provocateurs around me. I live a normal life and I love every minute of it. Would I want to go back to Belfast? No, I'm happy here. Why change it? Do I fix it if it's not broke? Why would I change my happiness to go back in there to maybe some rat would wind some wee lot up to put a bomb under my car or fire a few shots through my window? No chance. I am happy. I'm as happy as I've ever been. Am I making up for the life that I sort of I sacrificed that life fighting Republicans? Now I've got a normal life. I may be older in years, but I keep myself fit and I love and enjoy every aspect of life. And I don't think I'll be on this on earth much longer. But I enjoy every day while I'm here. So I've no desire to return to the Shankill or anywhere back there. Do I go back over there? Yes, I do go over. Only when I need to go over. But is it a place where I want to set up home? Absolutely not. This is my home and I love
I mean, even if it was the case that that like let's say hypothetically, you just knew there was no threat. I know it's purely hypothetical. Would you want to You surely want to go.
No, because like Scotland is a lovely country. I can drive to England, to Manchester, and I'm down there all the time. So for me to do that now from Belfast, you'd have to either fly or get a boat. I mean, I no need to Belfast. Okay, that's my home and all, but this is my home now. I'm happy here. So why would I change happiness to try and rebuild it again? I've got it. I've got it here. I've got everything I want here. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I've no desire to return unless a war breaks out in the next couple of weeks. I'll return. No way.
I guess that you must be you must be happy that your children, or at least the one that's there with you, he doesn't know anything resembling the life or the place that you.
No, 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 no. Sometimes, obviously, at his age, he's 13, and obviously, his wee schoolmates would talk about me. And sometimes he would come in and ask me about Belfast, and I ask me silly questions, and I say, no, that's not true. But everything's on the internet about me, and obviously, people tune in and listen, and he doesn't know. That's what he said to me the other week. He said, Dad, he says, do you know what they call me in school? I says, what, son? He says, wee dog, because he's small. He said, after every wee dog, because they call you mad dog. I says, no, you call him wee dog.
Did you like that name? And
Oh, I hated it.
did you
Hate
know
it.
the Dominic
Still hate it.
you
Still
know
hate
the Dominic
it.
McGlinchey also?
Oh, pathetic. My mad dog is a dog. Visions of a fucking big Rottweiler foaming at the mouth. No, that's a horrendous name. But when you look at all the names, King Rat, Mad Dog, fucking the Jackal, I mean, that's what they do a lot, is try to demonize you. But you throw something like that, it sticks, and then the media run with it, and then that's history. So it stuck with me. I hate it.
There's
Apart
many.
from a Mad Dog.
There's many like paramilitaries and stuff who even if they weren't proud of like everything they did, they would say, "Oh, I would do it all again. I would do it all again if the time came, or if I travel back in time." Would that be the same for
Oh,
you?
absolutely. I have no regrets. No regrets. The only regret I have is surrounded with the type of people that it did that was in the leadership of that organization. That's my biggest regret. I loved every minute, every second of every day that I was with all them where we volunteers from C-comp. I loved it. You knew there was trust there. There was no issues whatsoever. You mean you knew where you were, but the biggest regret I have is surrounding myself with most of the leadership of that organization. Because I'm being brutally honest, they were a shower of fucking arseholes. And I'm being honest, and anybody that fucking the know that people know who I'm talking about. But that's my biggest regret. I
It's
wish the had been anywhere near them because to be honest, I wouldn't even needed to go to that council meeting because them fucking agents were doing nothing anyway. So they should have just stayed the fuck away from them because they're nothing but fucking idiots, each and every one of them.
uh
That's my biggest regret.
sure.
Being a part of them fucking monkeys.
So given that you've talked about it, that you lived a life for years and years where you described as very, very far from being exciting or cool
Well,
or glamorous. It was a constant the adrenaline from like hearing about a death threat or constantly worried about this or having to second guess this and all that. Would that take, I'd have to imagine that between that and between you living like a normal life, there would be some kind of transitionary thing where you would have to like you would have to like,
adapt. No,
yeah, and
no, it was like no, I get where you're coming from. No, it was just like relief. It was like a weight getting lifted off my shoulder. And like the first thing that went away was you're not being stopped every single day by the police. Police never come near me. Police at the start they had me under surveillance, so which was they're doing their job because it was Johnny Adair. So the armed response would have busted my house a couple of times, just gypsy warning type of thing. Um, I think they were more concerned that I may be becoming involved in terrorism, and I think after a while, months of surveillance, they realised he's not engaging in anything. He's from it. So you never get that. You never ever never get harassed, never get stopped, never. My house got busted a couple of times away at the start, but that was acceptable and that was understandable. But I'm living a normal life. I harm nobody. I do my own thing and no comes near me. Come out the odd time. They've been out a couple of times with death threat. Fucking, what do you call it? Husband warrants, things like that. 6 years ago, a couple of distant Republicans had planned to kill me and Big Skelly, but they were jailed. And my life's just normal here. I love it.
Would there be any like leftover habits? Because I'd have to imagine that when you live that life, you would constantly be looking out the window, or you'd be looking in the mirror and like remembering cars.
But you see, I was not that paranoid person. See, because again, what I said,
that's not even paranoid. That's just being
what I said to you earlier on. What's for you will not go by you. You can't let paranoid. I remember Michael Stone saying to me, I said, Michael, you're fucking paranoid. And he was right. And he turned around and he said to me, he says, Johnny, paranoia keeps you alive. And he's right. And I remember what he said. But I'm not one of them to be paranoid. I'm not a paranoid person. I don't. The strength I have is phenomenal.
But there was surely times that through your carefulness and through your watching your back, you probably prevented you probably wouldn't be here if not for your carefulness. You'd have been there probably.
There was one time stands in particular stands. It was INLA. And the boys were doing a mural around my corner. And it was always my big bodyguard. He was security conscious, big Donald. He was always alert to everything. He could tell you there was an undercover police in a fan or people out of place. But there was this time he got it wrong and I got it right. So I'm standing there. And I'm watching the guys doing the paint, the big UDA mural. But this car came down. And it was just like textbook stuff. I'm standing looking up, and I never look at the suspicious cars because Donald was there and he always does that. But I see there's two guys in the car, but there's a wee kid with them. And I looked at the car, and the driver, it give the game away. He should have looked at me if he was normal. But because he was up to no good, he just kept staring ahead. And that made me suspicious straight away. And through experience, here's me, these cunts aren't right here. Because I looked at him and he just kept staring away. And then the wee baby, to make it look good, to make he blend into the area. Look, that's a couple of wee baby. So I run down the street after the car shouting because I knew they were Republicans. And lucky enough, there was a police car coming up, police jeep coming up. Stop them, bastard, stop. They didn't stop them. They were INLA cunts. And I believe that what they were doing, and I believe it saved my own life that time, because what they were doing was a dummy run to go back to the boat they were coming from to say, look, he's still standing there, because I was standing there. And they just drove back. And that's who they were INLA. And I believe then I saved them. And I was surprised because I never get edgy. But that time, it's just because your mom wouldn't look at me. And I knew from experience with me, no, that comes up to no good. So I think I saved my own life that time. But other than that,
does that
really hot. I look under my car now for a bomb, of course. Because that's the easiest thing you could do. Come up like a thief in the middle of the night and just put it up and under. 2 seconds, 1 second. So I always check that.
Has living that life for years, does that leave you with I won't even say mental scars, but just kind of like there's no
doubt. There's no doubt the things in the past don't leave you. And anybody says they do, they're fucking liars. Yes, and the things that we were doing were, yep. It's not like we weren't stealing fucking apples from a fruit shop. You know what I mean? It was a different part from that. So with things like that leave you, I don't care who you are, but I don't think that them things that's scratched in your memory, and it's never going to leave until the day you die. Depending on what you've done.
This is I mean just average. We're talking about broad general opinion. Like, do you think the generation that came after you who live in the Shankill now, how do you think they view you? And do you think it's different?
They love me. I think I'm on TikTok, and loyalists as a whole, even the wee generation coming up who were probably kids when I wasn't, but yes, because they watch all my. They know I was a real person. They know I'm not a sellout artist. They know I'm not an informer. They know I came through the wars. They know I engaged in the war. They know I'm not like these cunts. They know I'm the real deal. So that creates respect, and that the generation, because I see it. When I go to bomb parades in Glasgow or wherever I'm going, and there's crowds of kids from Belfast, and they're only 17 or 18, they're all over getting selfies taken with me. They weren't even born when I came, but they're hearing stories from their daddies, and they're because you know my uncle, you know my daddy, blah blah blah. And I think it's great that these people who weren't even born, but they know me and they want photos taken with me. So obviously, yes, it's a generational thing. And because I do them podcasts and all, people love all that, and they love my patter, and they know he's not a bullshit. He'd been there, done it with a t-shirt, and he's not scared to speak his fucking mind and the truth and stick up for his men, which I done.
How do you think that generation would view the current like the current loyalist paramilitaries? Now obviously they're very different to what ye are because there isn't a conflict going on. But do you think they're
I'll
viewed?
give you an example. Just a text there just came this morning, and I'm not saying no names or no areas today. And guy sends me a text, blah blah, Johnny, blah blah blah. These wee guys from such and such and absolutely adore you. Johnny, could you please do us a favour? Could you call them? So I've got their number there and I'm going to call them. And they're from a certain area, not the Shankill or not, nowhere, but good wee pros, obviously. So I'm going to call them as later on. But I get that all the time. I get that all the time. A guy came up to me the other day and presented me a gin glass with my name engraved on it. No surrender. Johnny Adair C-comp, UFFC company, no surrender. I get people. I know what you mean about the generation. Do they know who I am? Yes, because I have books. I have an autobiography, right? And also there's all them podcasts and people who, although we're in a time of peace, the next generation growing up, they want to know about the Johnny Adairs of this world, the Billy Wrights of this world, and other top loyalists. They want to know about it. They want to know it. And thankfully, I'm still alive. So it makes it more interesting that Johnny Adair's still alive. It's like them wee lads. I'm going to contact them, and sadly they can't do it with Billy and others. But yes, I get where you're coming from. That the generation coming up would still want to know and still want to read and watch my stuff.
Do you still speak with members, guys that you were in C company with?
Pardon?
Do you still like regularly speak with and have a relationship with guys who were
I have a relationship with all them except the traders and the touts. Relationship with everyone. I've done them as no wrong, they've done me no wrong. It's only the handful of touts and the jealous bastards. That's all. I love C company and I love the UDA. And I love doing what I was doing. And I love them fucking men. Real men. Real men.
Thank you very much. I appreciate how long you stayed and
Hey, no problem.
everything you've gone into. Anything you wanted to mention
No,
that we didn't get
no,
to?
that's it. No. Well, it was nice speaking to you, okay?
Sound out, but let me pause.